The shotgun blast shattered the Wyoming dawn as Anna Whitfield stood frozen in Ethan Ward's ranch kitchen, her hands white-knuckled around a cast-iron pan. Through the window, she saw him Richard Thornton, the man she'd fled across half a continent to escape dismounting his horse, with that same cruel smile that haunted her nightmares. "You can't hide forever, my dear," his voice carried on the wind. But this time she wasn't alone. This time she had something worth fighting for. Want to know how a simple cook became a rancher's salvation? Stay with me until the end and comment your city below. I'd love to see how far this story travels. The stagecoach lurched to a halt outside Willowbrook's only inn, dust swirling like ghosts in the October twilight. Anna Whitfield gripped her worn carpet bag tighter, its leather handles cutting into her palms, palms that had once held fine china teacups at Boston society gatherings, now roughened by months of running and hiding. She stepped down onto the wooden boardwalk, her traveling dress mud-stained at the hem, and surveyed the frontier town that would either be her sanctuary or her grave. "You the cook?" The voice was gruff, weathered like old leather left too long in the sun. Anna turned to find a man who could only be Ethan Ward. 35 years had carved deep lines around his gray eyes, and his broad shoulders spoke of countless days wrestling cattle and breaking horses. His hat shadowed most of his face, but she caught the wariness there, the look of a man who'd learned to expect disappointment. "Mr. Ward." She kept her voice steady, though her heart hammered against her ribs. "I'm Anna Whitfield. I responded to your advertisement." He studied her for a long moment, taking in her youth. She couldn't be more than 25, and the incongruity of her refined bearing against the rough backdrop of Willowbrook's main street. "Expected someone older," he said bluntly. "Maybe a widow with grown children." "I can cook," Anna replied, lifting her chin. "That's what your advertisement required. Can you show me a single line where it specified age or marital status?" Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, perhaps even the ghost of amusement. "Ranch life ain't easy, Miss Whitfield. It's 20 miles to town, snows pile high enough to bury a man come winter, and the only company you'll have is me and 3 ranch hands who barely remember their manners on a good day. I'm not looking for easy, Mr. Ward. I'm looking for honest work and a place to stay." He tilted his head, studying her with an intensity that made her want to shrink back, but she held her ground. Whatever he saw in her face seemed to satisfy him, or perhaps he was simply desperate enough not to question his luck too closely. "Wagons this way," he said, finally taking her carpetbag without asking. His hand brushed hers in the exchange, calloused and warm, and Anna felt an unexpected jolt of something. Safety, perhaps, or danger of an entirely different kind. The ride to the Double W Ranch took 3 hours over rutted trails that had Anna gripping the wagon seat until her knuckles ached. Ethan said little occasionally, pointing out landmarks, Devil's Canyon to the north, where cattle thieves had been hanged 2 summers back. Widow's Peak to the east, where lightning struck so often the trees grew twisted and black. His voice held neither pride nor shame, simply stating facts about the land that had shaped him. "Why did you leave?" he asked suddenly as they crested a hill, the ranch spreading before them in the valley below. Anna had practiced this lie so many times it came smoothly. "My parents passed. There was nothing left for me in the East." He glanced at her and she knew he recognized the half-truth for what it was, but he merely nodded and said, "We all got our reasons for being where we are." The Double W Ranch sat nestled against a backdrop of pine-covered mountains, its log buildings weathered but solid. The main house was larger than Anna expected, 2 stories with a wide porch that wrapped around 3 sides. Smoke curled from the chimney, and she could see curtains, actual curtains, in some of the windows. "My mother's doing," Ethan said, catching her surprise. She had notions about civilizing this place before the fever took her 10 years back. "I'm sorry for your loss. Long time ago now." But the tightness in his jaw suggested otherwise. As they pulled up to the house, 3 men emerged from the bunkhouse. The oldest, a grizzled man with skin like worn saddle leather, introduced himself as Tom. The younger 2, Billy and Miguel, tipped their hats with shy smiles. "This here's Miss Whitfield," Ethan announced. "She'll be cooking for us, so mind your manners or you'll be eating your own burnt beans again." The men's faces lit up with almost comical relief. Thank the Lord, Tom muttered. I was starting to think we'd die of Ethan's cooking before winter killed us. My cooking's kept you alive 5 months, Ethan protested. Alive and wishing we weren't, Billy shot back with a grin. Anna found herself smiling her first real smile in months. When did you men last have a proper meal? The silence that followed was answer enough. Right then, she said, squaring her shoulders. Mr. Ward, if you'll show me the kitchen, I'll see what can be done about supper. The kitchen, it turned out, was a disaster. Pots sat unwashed, grease coated every surface, and something that might once have been bread had fossilized on the counter. Anna rolled up her sleeves, tied her hair back with a piece of string from her bag, and set to work. 2 hours later, she'd transformed chaos into order. The men sat around the large wooden table, staring at plates of beef stew, fresh biscuits, and apple pie she'd conjured from the meager supplies in the pantry, like some kind of culinary magic. This is, Tom paused, his eyes actually misting. This is how my mama used to cook. Better, Miguel declared, already reaching for seconds. Ethan ate in silence, but Anna caught him watching her when he thought she wasn't looking. There was something in his expression she couldn't quite read, surprise certainly, but something else too. Something that made her pulse quicken, despite herself. After dinner, the hands retreated to the bunkhouse, leaving Anna and Ethan alone. He showed her to her room, small but clean, with a narrow bed, a dresser, and a window overlooking the mountains. It ain't much, he said almost apologetically. It's perfect. And she meant it. After months of running, sleeping in stagecoaches and cheap boarding houses, always looking over her shoulder, this simple room felt like a fortress. I'll leave you to settle in. Breakfast is at dawn coffee first, then food for the men before they head out. Lunch is simple, whatever you can manage. Supper's the main meal. I understand. He turned to leave, then paused in the doorway. Miss Whitfield, Anna, I don't know what you're running from, and I won't ask. But you're safe here. This ranch, these men, we take care of our own. Before she could respond, he was gone, his boots echoing down the hallway. Anna sank onto the bed, overwhelmed by an emotion she hadn't felt in so long she'd almost forgotten its name, hope. The first week passed in a blur of routine. Anna rose before dawn to start the coffee strong and black the way the men liked it. She learned their preferences quickly. Tom liked extra salt in everything. Billy had a sweet tooth that would shame a child Miguel couldn't stomach. Milk and Ethan. Ethan was harder to read. He ate whatever she put before him with quiet appreciation, always thanking her but maintaining a careful distance. It was the 7th night when things began to change. Anna couldn't sleep, haunted by nightmares of Richard's hands around her throat, his voice promising she'd never escape him. She crept downstairs thinking to make herself some warm milk when she heard it. The lonely wail of a fiddle from the porch. She found Ethan there, sitting in an old rocking chair, coaxing melancholy notes from a battered instrument. He startled when he saw her nearly dropping the bow. Couldn't sleep, she explained, wrapping her shawl tighter around her shoulders against the mountain chill. Makes 2 of us. He gestured to the chair beside him. Sit, if you like. Unless the caterwauling drove you down here, in which case I'll stop. No, please continue. It's beautiful. He snorted. You're either tone deaf or too polite for your own good. Neither. My father played violin, professionally before. She caught herself, but Ethan didn't press. Instead, he began to play again a slow, mournful tune that seemed to capture all the loneliness of the vast prairie spreading before them. Without thinking, Anna began to hum along, then sing an old lullaby her mother had taught her about a sailor lost at sea who finds his way home by following the sound of his true love's voice. When the last note faded, she found Ethan staring at her with an expression of naked wonder. Where did you learn to sing like that? Heat flooded her cheeks. My mother insisted on lessons, said a lady should have accomplishments. That's not lessons, that's... He shook his head. That's something else entirely. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars wheel overhead. Finally, Ethan spoke again. I wasn't always alone out here, had a bride once or near enough. Margaret. We'd been promised since childhood, our fathers being neighbors back in Missouri. She came out here with her family, took one look at this place, and decided she'd rather marry Harold Brennan and his general store in town. I'm sorry, He shrugged. Can't say I blame her. This life ain't for everyone. The isolation breaks some people. And others it saves, Anna said quietly. He looked at her sharply. That what you need saving? She met his gaze steadily. We all need saving from something, Mr. Ward. Some of us from the world, others from ourselves. Ethan, he said. Call me Ethan. Then you must call me Anna. Something shifted between them in that moment, subtle but undeniable. A recognition, perhaps, of kindred spirits who'd been wounded by the world and chosen exile over further pain. The next morning brought trouble in the form of Josiah Brandt. Anna was hanging laundry when she heard the horse's 5 riders approaching fast. Ethan emerged from the barn, rifle in hand, and she saw Tom, Billy, and Miguel take strategic positions around the yard. Josiah Brandt was everything Ethan was not smooth, where Ethan was rough, calculated where Ethan was straightforward. His clothes spoke of money, his manner of someone used to getting what he wanted. Ward, he said, not bothering to dismount. Thought I'd come see if you'd reconsidered my offer. Nothing to reconsider, Ethan replied evenly. Ranch isn't for sale. Everything's for sale at the right price. Not this. Brandt's eyes found Anna, and she suppressed a shiver at the cold assessment in them. Well, well. Seems you've finally found yourself a woman, Ward. Didn't think you had it in you after the Brennan girl threw you over. Ethan's jaw tightened, but his voice remained steady. Miss Whitfield is my cook, nothing more. Pretty thing to be wasting on kitchen work. Brandt tipped his hat to Anna with mocking courtesy. If you ever tire of Ward's company, miss, you'd be welcome at the Triple Crown. I pay better, and the accommodations are considerably finer. I'm quite content where I am, thank you, Anna replied coolly. Are you now? Something in Brandt's tone made her skin crawl. Interesting, you look familiar, miss. Have we met before? Perhaps back east I do business in Boston occasionally. Anna's blood turned to ice, but she kept her expression neutral. I doubt it, sir. I'm not from Boston. My mistake, then. But his smile said he didn't believe her. After they left, Ethan turned to her. You know him? No. The lie came too quickly, and they both knew it. Anna? I need to start lunch, she said, fleeing to the kitchen before he could press further, but that night she heard Ethan and Tom talking on the porch. Brandt's asking questions in town, Tom said, about Miss Anna, where she came from, who her people are. Tell him to mind his own damn business. It's more than his usual nastiness, boss. He sent a telegram to Boston. Anna's knees nearly buckled. She gripped the door frame to keep from falling. Let him, Ethan said flatly. Anna's part of this ranch now. Anyone wants to cause her trouble, they go through me. Even if she's running from something. Especially then. We've all done things we're not proud of, Tom. All of us deserve a second chance. Anna retreated to her room, tears streaming down her face. She should leave tonight before she brought trouble to these good people. But she was so tired of running, and for the first time in months, she'd found something worth staying for. The following weeks brought a tentative rhythm to their days. Anna threw herself into her work, transforming simple ingredients into feasts that had the men treating her like she'd hung the moon herself. She mended their clothes, doctored their wounds, and slowly, carefully began to let herself believe she might actually be safe. Ethan, for his part, began finding excuses to linger in the kitchen. He'd bring her wildflowers for the table, he'd say gruffly. He fixed the loose floorboard in her room, installed a better lock on her door, and when he noticed her trying to hide the blisters on her hands from the harsh lye soap, he quietly left a tin of salve on the kitchen counter. The fiddle and song became their nightly ritual. After the hands retired, Anna and Ethan would sit on the porch making music that drifted across the empty land like a prayer. Sometimes they talked carefully, dancing around their respective wounds, and sometimes they just sat in comfortable silence, two damaged souls finding peace in each other's presence. It was Billy who inadvertently changed everything. You're falling for her, he said to Ethan one morning as they repaired a fence. The younger man's observation was matter of fact without judgment. Don't know what you're talking about, Ethan muttered. Sure you don't. That's why you shaved for the first time in a month and why you've been wearing your good shirt to dinner. It needed wearing. 3 times this week. Ethan drove a fence post into the ground with perhaps more force than necessary. She's been through enough. Last thing she needs is me making things complicated. Maybe complicated is exactly what she needs. The right kind of complicated, anyway. That night, an early winter storm rolled in without warning. The temperature plummeted and snow began falling in thick, heavy sheets. The men barely made it back from the far pasture where they'd been checking on the cattle. Lost at least 10 head, Tom reported grimly. Maybe more. Can't see 5 feet in that mess. Anna served hot stew and coffee, but worry etched deep lines in Ethan's face. If this keeps up, we could lose half the herd. Around midnight, Anna woke to the sound of the door slamming. She rushed downstairs to find Tom and Billy suited up for the storm. Ethan went to check the east pasture 2 hours ago, Tom shouted over the wind. Hasn't come back. Without thinking, Anna grabbed Ethan's spare coat from the hook. I'm coming with you. Like hell you are, Tom said. You'll freeze to death in minutes. Then we'd better hurry. She pushed past them into the storm before they could stop her. The cold hit like a physical blow, stealing her breath, but she pressed on. The men had no choice but to follow. They searched for an hour calling Ethan's name until their voices grew hoarse. The world had become a white void, directionless and deadly. Anna's feet went numb. Her hands turned to ice despite the thick gloves, but she wouldn't stop. Then cutting through the howling wind, she heard the faint wail of a fiddle. This way? She plunged toward the sound, the men struggling to keep up. They found him in a small cave, his horse dead beside him, his left arm bent at an unnatural angle. He'd managed to retrieve his fiddle from his saddlebag and was playing one-handed the same tune from that first night on the porch. Knew you'd hear it, he said when he saw Anna, his lips blue with cold. You always hear the music. They got him back to the house and Anna took charge with an efficiency that surprised even her. She set his arm while Tom held him down and Billy poured whiskey down his throat. She cleaned the gash on his forehead, wrapped him in every blanket they could find, and then when he couldn't stop shivering, she did something that would have scandalized proper society. She climbed into bed beside him, adding her body heat to his. Anna? He mumbled, delirious with cold and pain. Don't leave. Please don't leave. I'm not going anywhere, she whispered, holding him close as the storm raged outside. He survived the night, and by morning the fever had broken. When he woke to find Anna curled against him fully clothed but still scandalous by any standard, he didn't pull away. You saved my life, he said quietly. You saved mine first, she replied. The night you gave me this job. He raised his good hand to her face, thumb brushing across her cheekbone. Anna, The door burst open, and Miguel rushed in. Boss, we got trouble. Brant's here with the sheriff. They're looking for Miss Anna. The blood drained from Anna's face. He found me. Who found you? Ethan struggled to sit up, wincing at the pain in his arm. Richard Thornton. The name came out like broken glass. The man I was supposed to marry. The man who... She couldn't finish. The man who hurt you. It wasn't a question. She nodded, tears flowing freely now. He's rich, powerful. He's told everyone I stole from him that I'm a thief and worse. No one will believe me over him. I believe you, Ethan said fiercely, and you're not facing him alone. He stood swaying slightly and reached for his gun belt with his good hand. You can barely stand, Anna protested. Then I'll face them sitting down, but I'll be damned if they're taking you without a fight. They walked out together. Anna's head high, despite the terror coursing through her veins. Sheriff Morrison stood on the porch, looking uncomfortable. Beside him, Josiah Brant wore a satisfied smirk. Miss Whitfield, the sheriff said. Or should I say, Miss Pemberton, you're under arrest for theft. Mr. Thornton has sworn out a warrant. Her name is Whitfield, Ethan said coldly, and she's not going anywhere. Now, Ethan, don't make this harder than it needs to be, Morrison said. I've got papers from a judge in Boston. Then you'd better have papers from a judge here too, because I don't recognize Boston's authority on my land. Ethan, Anna said quietly, don't. I won't have you hurt because of me. Too late for that, he replied, never taking his eyes off the sheriff. Morrison, you've known me 10 years. Have I ever lied to you? No. Then believe me when I say this woman is innocent of whatever lies Thornton is spreading. You take her, you'll have to go through me. Tom, Billy, and Miguel emerged from the bunkhouse, all armed, ranging themselves behind Ethan and Anna. Seems you'll have to go through all of us, Tom said calmly. The sheriff looked from face to face, then sighed. The circuit judge will be here in a week. Miss Whitfield can remain here until then, but if she runs, she won't, Ethan said. After they left, Anna collapsed into a chair, shaking. You don't understand. Richard has money connections. He'll turn the whole town against me. Then we'd better make sure the town knows the truth first, Ethan said. He turned to Billy. Ride to town. Find Mrs. Patterson at the boarding house. She knows every woman for 50 miles. Tell her we need help. What kind of help? Billy asked. The kind only women can give each other. 3 days later, Anna stood in the Willowbrook courthouse watching the room fill with people. Richard Thornton sat at the prosecutor's table, as handsome and cold as she remembered his expensive suit and gold watch catching the light. He caught her eye and smiled the same smile he'd worn the night he'd locked her in his study and tried to force himself on her the night she'd hit him with a poker and fled with nothing but the clothes on her back. But this time she wasn't alone. The courtroom was packed with women. Mrs. Patterson from the boarding house, Mrs. Chen from the general store, the minister's wife. The school teacher, even some of the saloon girls had come. They sat in silent solidarity, their presence a wall between Anna and the man who'd tried to destroy her. And in the front row sat Ethan, his arm still in a sling, his presence steady as a mountain. The judge, an elderly man named Hartford, called the court to order. Richard's lawyer, brought in from Denver, painted Anna as a calculating seductress who'd stolen not just money, but jewelry and important documents. She bewitched my client, the lawyer declared. Led him on with promises of marriage, then robbed him blind when he was vulnerable. When it was Anna's turn to speak, she stood slowly, her legs trembling. Your Honor, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. Then she caught Ethan's eye, saw the absolute faith there, and her voice grew stronger. My name is Anna Whitfield. I was born Anna Pemberton, and yes, I was engaged to Richard Thornton. Our fathers arranged it when I was 17. I didn't love him, but I was prepared to do my duty. She took a breath. The night before our wedding, Richard came to my room. He'd been drinking. He said he didn't want to wait. When I refused, he became violent. Lies, Richard shouted, jumping to his feet. Your Honor, she's making this up to gain sympathy. Sit down, Mr. Thornton, the judge said sternly. Anna continued, I hit him with a poker to get away. I ran with nothing. No money, no jewelry, nothing but my mother's ring, which I sold in Chicago for coach fare. I've been running ever since. A touching story, Richard's lawyer said smoothly. But where's your proof? My client has provided documentation of the missing items, witnesses who saw Miss Pemberton with them. What does she have but a sad tale? She has this... A clear voice rang from the back of the room. Everyone turned to see a woman in an elegant traveling suit walking down the aisle. She was beautiful, poised, and looked directly at Richard with undisguised contempt. Eleanor, Richard's face went pale. What are you doing here? Setting things right, Eleanor Hartley replied. She addressed the judge. Your Honor, I was Richard Thornton's fiancée after Miss Pemberton fled. We were engaged for 6 months before I discovered his true nature. She opened her bag and withdrew a packet of letters. These are Richard's own words written to various private detectives offering substantial rewards for Anna's capture. In them he admits she took nothing but says, and I quote, I don't care about the money. Tell the authorities whatever you need to. I want her back, and I want her broken. The courtroom erupted in shocked murmurs. There's more, Eleanor continued. I have receipts showing Richard purchased the jewelry after Anna left jewelry he now claims she stole. I also have testimony from 3 other women he's pursued in similar fashion. This is ridiculous, Richard snarled. You bitter witch, you're just angry I broke our engagement. Actually, Eleanor said coolly, I broke our engagement right after you tried to force yourself on me the same way you did with Anna. The judge's gavel cracked like thunder. Mr. Thornton, you will control yourself or be held in contempt. But Richard was past control. He lunged toward Anna. You belong to me. Your father promised. Ethan moved faster than anyone expected from an injured man. His fist connected with Richard's jaw, sending him sprawling. "She belongs to no one but herself," Ethan said quietly, dangerously. "And if you come near her again, a broken jaw will be the least of your problems." The judge reviewed the evidence, his face growing stonier with each document. Finally, he looked up. "Mr. Thornton, not only are these charges dismissed, but I'm forwarding this evidence to the authorities in Boston. I suggest you leave Wyoming immediately, and if I ever see you in my courtroom again, it will be you facing charges. Miss Whitfield, you're free to go." Anna's knees buckled, but Ethan was there, catching her with his good arm, holding her steady, as he'd been doing since the day she arrived. Outside the courthouse, Eleanor approached them. "I'm sorry I didn't come forward sooner. I was afraid, but when I heard he'd found you..." Anna embraced her. "Thank you. Thank you for your courage." Eleanor smiled sadly. "We women must stand together against men like him." She looked at Ethan. "Take care of her, Mr. Ward. She deserves happiness." "I intend to..." Ethan said, his arm tightening around Anna. As Eleanor's carriage pulled away, Anna turned to Ethan. "You hit him with your injured arm." "Worth it," he said, wincing, "though I think I may have rebroken something." "You impossible man," she said, tears and laughter mingling. "Come on, let's get you to the doctor." "In a minute." He pulled her close with his good arm. "Anna, I know this isn't the time or place, but almost losing you made me realize I can't go back to the silence. The ranch was just a place before you came. Now it's home. You're home. Ethan. I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give, but if you'll have me broken parts and all, I'd like to court you proper, the way you deserve." Anna reached up, framing his face with her hands. "You beautiful, stubborn fool. Don't you know I've been yours since the night you played that fiddle on the porch? Since you told me I was safe? Since you stood between me and the world without even knowing why?" He kissed her, then right there on Main Street in full view of half the town. It was scandalous, improper, and absolutely perfect. When they broke apart, Tom was grinning from the wagon. "About damn time. Now can we go home? The ranch won't run itself, and I'm too old to be standing around watching you two make calf eyes at each other." The ride back to the Double W was different from that first journey. Anna sat pressed against Ethan's side, his good arm around her shoulders. The sun was setting, painting the mountains gold and purple, and she could see smoke rising from the ranch house chimney Billy and Miguel had gone ahead to start dinner. "I can't cook tonight," Anna said. "I'm too emotional to trust myself with knives." "Then we'll make do," Ethan said, "like we did before." "Lord help us all," Tom muttered. "One night of the boss's cooking and we'll all be begging Miss Anna to marry him just to save our stomachs." "Actually," Ethan said quietly, "I was thinking of a Christmas wedding. Give Anna time to settle to be sure this is what she wants." "Christmas is only 6 weeks away and," Anna pointed out, "too soon." She thought of the months of running, of fear, of loneliness. Then she thought of waking up every morning knowing she was safe, was wanted, was loved. "Not soon enough," she said. The news of their engagement spread through the valley like wildfire. Women who'd stood silent in the courtroom now arrived at the ranch with gifts, preserved fruits, quilts, lace curtains for the windows. The men from neighboring ranches came to congratulate Ethan and warn him good-naturedly that he'd better treat her right or answer to them. Even Sheriff Morrison stopped by with his wife to apologize for his part in the near arrest. "I should have known better," he said. "Man like Thornton, all smooth talk and flash, should have seen right through him." "You were doing your job," Anna said graciously, though Ethan's expression suggested he wasn't quite ready to forgive. The weeks before Christmas flew by in a whirlwind of preparation. Mrs. Patterson took charge of Anna's dress, enlisting every woman in town who could sew. The minister's wife organized the food, determining that the reception would be held at the church hall rather than the ranch. "This is the most excitement we've had since the last Indian raid," she declared. "We're going to do it right." The night before the wedding, Anna couldn't sleep. She found Ethan on the porch, despite the cold, playing his fiddle. "Nervous?" she asked, settling beside him. "Terrified," he admitted. "Not of marrying you, that's the only thing I'm sure of, but of failing you, of not being enough." "You're already everything," she said simply. You gave me safety when I was hunted, purpose when I was lost, and love when I thought I'd never trust again. How could that not be enough? What about you? Any doubts? Anna thought of Richard, of the terror she'd felt, the certainty that she'd never be free. Then she looked at Ethan, solid, steady. Ethan, who'd fought for her without question, who played fiddle to chase away her nightmares, who looked at her like she'd hung the moon. No doubts, she said, only gratitude. For what? For posting that advertisement for a cook, for being desperate enough to hire a woman who was clearly lying about something, for being too stubborn to let me go. Best decision I ever made, he said, setting down the fiddle to pull her close. Even if your first meal hadn't been magnificent. Liar, you hired me because you felt sorry for me. No, he said seriously. I hired you because when you lifted your chin and challenged me about the advertisement's wording, I saw strength, real strength, the kind that's been tested and survived. I knew right then you belonged here. And now I know you belong here because I can't imagine the ranch without you. Can't imagine my life without your singing, your laugh, the way you mother the men, and pretend you're not soft-hearted. You've turned this place from a mere ranch into a home. They sat in comfortable silence, watching snow begin to fall gentle this time, like a blessing rather than a threat. Sing for me, Ethan requested, one more time as Anna Whitfield. Tomorrow, I'll still be Anna, she said. Just Anna Ward instead. Sing anyway. So she did, her voice carrying across the snow-covered valley, singing the lullaby that had become theirs about finding home not in a place but in another person's heart. And Ethan played along their music, twining together like their lives would tomorrow and all the days after. The wedding day dawned clear and cold, the sun making the snow sparkle like diamonds. The entire town, it seemed, had crowded into the small church. Anna wore her mother's wedding dress, altered by many loving hands, with a veil of Belgian lace that Mrs. Patterson had contributed from her own trousseau. You look beautiful, Eleanor said. She'd returned for the wedding, bringing with her testimony that had helped convict Richard of assault in Boston. He was now serving 5 years in prison. I look happy, Anna corrected. For the first time in so long, I'm truly happy. When the church doors opened and she saw Ethan standing at the altar, cleaned up, shaved, wearing a suit that Tom had insisted he buy, her heart nearly stopped. He looked handsome, yes, but more importantly, he looked like home. Billy walked her down the aisle, having written to her father's elderly sister, and received her blessing to give Anna away. Don't know why you're nervous, he whispered. He's been yours since the day you made that apple pie. The ceremony was simple, the vows traditional, but when Ethan said, I promise to protect you, honor you, and cherish you all my days, his voice broke slightly, and there wasn't a dry eye in the church. When the minister pronounced them married, Ethan kissed his bride with a tenderness that had even the roughest cowboys dabbing at their eyes. The reception was a joyous affair. Tables groaned under the weight of food, the local fiddler played dancing tunes, and even Tom was convinced to take a turn around the floor with Mrs. Patterson. As the sun set, Ethan and Anna slipped away to the wagon decorated with ribbons and bells. The ranch hands would stay in town tonight, giving the newlyweds privacy. Ready to go home, Mrs. Ward? Ethan asked. I've been home since the day I arrived, Anna replied. But yes, take me to our ranch. As they drove through the snow, Anna began to sing not a lullaby this time, but a song of joy, of new beginnings, of love that had grown from desperation and bloomed into something beautiful. Behind them, the lights of town faded. Ahead, the Double W Ranch waited, smoke rising from the chimney windows, glowing with lamplight, a beacon of warmth in the vast Wyoming wilderness. Thank you, Anna said suddenly. For what? For needing a cook, for being too stubborn to let Brant drive you off your land, for believing me when no one else would. Thank you, Ethan replied, for answering that advertisement, for being brave enough to start over, for teaching me that being alone and being lonely aren't the same thing, and that the right person can make even this wilderness feel like paradise. As they pulled up to their home, truly, their home now, snow began to fall again, soft and silent. Ethan helped Anna down from the wagon, and she paused, looking at the house that had become her sanctuary. What are you thinking? He asked. That 6 months ago I was running for my life, certain I'd never be safe, never be loved, never have a home again. And now? She turned to face him, her eyes bright with tears of joy. Now I have everything I never dared dream of. This is just the beginning, Ethan promised, leading her toward the door. We've got a lifetime ahead of us, Anna Ward. A lifetime of music and laughter, of hard work and quiet evenings of building something lasting on this land. As they crossed the threshold as husband and wife, Anna knew he was right. The lonely rancher who'd wanted just a cook had found so much more, and the frightened woman running from her past had discovered that sometimes the best hiding place is in plain sight, in the arms of someone who sees you clearly and loves you anyway. The door closed behind them, shutting out the cold, and the past leaving only warmth, only the future, only love. And somewhere in the darkness, a fiddle began to play, joined by a voice raised in song, the music of two hearts that had found their way home. The first months of marriage passed in a rhythm of contentment that Anna had never known possible. Winter held the ranch in its grip, but inside the house, warmth flourished. She'd wake before dawn to find Ethan already stoking the fire, his movements quiet to avoid disturbing her, though she'd learned to recognize the particular creak of the third stair that always gave him away. "You're supposed to be resting," she said one February morning, finding him in the kitchen attempting to make coffee. His arm had healed, but Doc Morrison had warned about overexertion. "Can't have my wife doing all the work," he replied, though he gratefully surrendered the coffee pot when she took it from his hands. "Besides, Tom's been complaining that marriage has made me soft." Tom complains about everything. Yesterday he complained the sun was too bright bouncing off the snow. Ethan pulled her close, his hands settling at her waist. "Have I told you today how grateful I am you answered that advertisement?" "Only twice," she teased. "You're falling behind your usual count." Their kiss was interrupted by Tom's voice from the porch. "Boss, we got company coming. Looks like the Brennan wagon." Anna felt Ethan tense. Harold and Margaret Brennan. She knew the story, of course. The woman who'd chosen the shopkeeper over the rancher who'd broken Ethan's heart before Anna had arrived to heal it. "I should check on them," Ethan said, but Anna caught his hand. "We should check on them. I'm your wife, remember? We face things together now." The Brennan's wagon was indeed struggling through the snow-heavy road. Harold jumped down his city clothes, inadequate for the weather, his face red with cold and something else embarrassment, perhaps. "Ethan," he said stiffly. "Mrs. Ward." He nodded to Anna. "I apologize for the intrusion, but we've had some trouble. Our horses got into Henry Palmer's grain storage." Margaret finished stepping down from the wagon. She was still beautiful, Anna noted objectively, with the kind of delicate features that belonged in a parlor, not on a ranch. But there was something hollow in her eyes now, a disappointment that hadn't been there in the wedding photograph Anna had found tucked in Ethan's Bible. "Palmer's threatening to take us to court," Harold continued. "Says we owe him $300 for the damage and lost grain." "300?" Billy whistled low. "That's robbery." "That's Palmer," Tom muttered. "Man would charge his own mother interest on a loan." Ethan stood silent for a long moment, and Anna could feel the war inside him, old hurt battling with ingrained decency. She squeezed his hand gently, a reminder that the past was past. "Come inside," Ethan said finally. "It's too cold to discuss this out here." In the kitchen, Anna served coffee and warm biscuits while Harold explained their situation. The store was struggling. The winter had been harder than expected, and now this debt to Palmer threatened to ruin them completely. "We have nowhere else to turn," Margaret said quietly, not quite meeting Ethan's eyes. "I know we have no right to ask after everything, but if you could speak to Palmer, maybe convince him to be reasonable." "Palmer doesn't know the meaning of reasonable," Ethan said, "but I might be able to help another way. We need supplies from town, been putting off the trip because of the weather. Harold, if you're willing to negotiate a fair trade, goods for credit, we could work something out." "You'd do that?" Harold's relief was palpable. Considering. "We're neighbors," Ethan said simply. "Out here, that means something." Anna saw Margaret's face crumple slightly, perhaps finally understanding what she'd given up. But when she spoke, it was to Anna, not Ethan. "You're very fortunate, Mrs. Ward. I hope you appreciate what you have." "Every single day," Anna replied steadily. Would you like to see what we need from the store? I have a list prepared. As she led Margaret to the pantry to discuss supplies, she heard the woman say softly, I was a fool, wasn't I? Anna turned to face her directly. You made a choice based on what you thought you wanted. That doesn't make you a fool, it makes you human. But Ethan and I were happy now, truly happy. So perhaps everything worked out as it was meant to. Margaret nodded, tears threatening. Harold's a good man, but this life, it's harder than I expected. The isolation, the struggle. It's not the isolation that's hard, Anna said gently. It's being with the wrong person in it. With the right person, even the wilderness feels full. That night, after the Brennans had left with a wagon load of supplies and a payment plan that would help both families, Ethan was unusually quiet. Regrets? Anna asked as they prepared for bed. No, he said immediately, then paused. Maybe gratitude. If Margaret had stayed, if she'd married me, you never would have come here. I would have missed the best thing that ever happened to me without even knowing it. Fate has a strange way of working things out. Anna agreed, brushing out her long hair. Ethan took the brush from her hands, gently working through the tangles as he'd learned to do. That first night when you sang on the porch, I think I knew then. My soul recognized yours before my mind caught up. Such poetry from a rancher, she teased, but her voice was thick with emotion. You inspire it, he said, simply setting down the brush to wrap his arms around her. Anna, there's something I need to tell you about Brant. She stiffened. What about him? He's been buying up land all around us. The Hendersons sold last week. The Palmers are considering his offer. He's trying to box us and control the water rights. Can he do that? Legally, yes. But Tom heard something else in town. Brant's been getting letters from back east, from Boston. Anna's blood chilled. Richard, we don't know for sure, but the timing. Anna, I think they might be working together somehow. She turned in his arms, fear flooding her features. If Richard has connected with Brant, then we'll face them together, Ethan said firmly. Both of them. You're not alone anymore, remember? But the seed of worry had been planted, and it grew as February melted into March. Strange things began happening. Fences cut in the night, cattle scattered, waterholes poisoned. Never enough to prove anything, always just enough to cause hardship. Then came the letter. Anna was feeding the chickens when Billy rode up hard from town, his face grim. Mrs. Ward, this came for you. Postmaster said it was marked urgent. With trembling hands, she opened the envelope. Richard's handwriting made her stomach lurch. My dear Anna, she read aloud to Ethan later, her voice steady despite her shaking hands. You thought prison walls could hold me. My lawyers are better than that. I'm free on appeal, and I'm coming for what's mine. Your husband can't protect you forever. Enjoy your little fantasy while it lasts. Ethan crumpled the letter in his fist. He's trying to scare you. It's working, Anna admitted. Let him come, Ethan said darkly. This time, I'll be ready for him. But Richard was too clever for direct confrontation. Instead, the harassment intensified. Dead animals appeared on their doorstep. Windows were broken in the night. One morning, Anna woke to find her garden, the one she'd spent weeks planning for spring, destroyed. Every seedling, torn up salt poured into the soil. That's enough, Ethan declared after that incident. I'm going to town to wire the federal marshal. But when he returned, his face was grim. Telegraph lines are down, Cut Morrison says, and Brant's bought the freight company no mail going out unless he approves it. They were effectively isolated, and Richard's next letter made it clear he knew it. Feeling trapped, my dear. You always did look beautiful when cornered. Remember that night in my study? You won't have a poker this time. Anna burned the letter, but the words lingered like smoke. The attack came on a moonless night in early April. Anna woke to the sound of breaking glass and Ethan's shout. Armed men were surrounding the house, at least 8 of them faces covered with bandanas. Ward, Brant's voice carried through the darkness. Send out the woman and we'll leave peaceful like. Go to hell, Brant, Ethan shouted back, checking his rifle. Tom, Billy, and Miguel had taken positions at various windows. Anna loaded weapons, her hands steady, despite her terror. You're outnumbered, Brant called. No shame in being practical. Practical. Ethan laughed harshly. You mean cowardly. Takes a real man to attack in the night with 8 guns against 4. 5, Anna corrected, picking up a shotgun. 5 guns. The first shot shattered the kitchen window. Then all hell broke loose. Gunfire erupted from both sides, the house becoming a battlefield. Anna stayed low, reloading for the men until she saw a shadow creeping toward the back door. Without thinking, she fired through the door. A man's scream told her she'd hit her target. That's my girl, Ethan said fiercely, but his celebration was cut short as a bullet grazed his shoulder. You're hit. Anna started toward him, but he waved her back. Stay down. It's not bad. The firefight continued for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Then suddenly, new gunfire erupted from outside, but not aimed at the house. What the hell? Tom muttered. Through the window, Anna saw riders, lots of them, surrounding Brandt's men. The Brennans were there, and the minister and Sheriff Morrison, and what looked like half the town. Heard you might have some trouble, Morrison called out cheerfully. Thought we'd even the odds a bit. Brandt's men, suddenly outnumbered 3-1, threw down their weapons. Brandt himself tried to flee, but was brought down by a flying tackle from, of all people, Harold Brennan. That's for threatening to ruin my store if I didn't stay quiet, Harold said, sitting on Brandt's back. As Morrison and his deputies rounded up the attackers, Anna tended Ethan's shoulder. The wound was indeed minor, but she fussed over it anyway, needing to touch him to reassure herself he was alive. How did they know? Ethan asked Morrison. Mrs. Patterson, the sheriff replied with a grin. She's been organizing the women to watch for trouble ever since that letter came. When she saw riders heading this way after dark, she raised the alarm. Half the town was already suspicious of Brandt. This just gave us the excuse we needed. But Brandt, even captured, wasn't finished. You think this is over, he snarled. Thornton's got money influence. He'll keep coming until he gets her. Then he'll die trying, Ethan said flatly. Morrison hauled Brandt to his feet. Actually, about Thornton, that's the other reason I came. Got a telegram just before the lines went down. Richard Thornton is dead. Anna gasped, her legs suddenly weak. Dead? Killed in a prison fight 2 weeks ago. Seems he made enemies inside just like he did outside. You're free, Mrs. Ward, truly free. Anna collapsed against Ethan. Tears streaming down her face, grief for what might have been if Richard had been a different man, and overwhelming gratitude that it was finally over. The town rallied around them in the following days. Men came to repair the damage to the house, women brought food and comfort. The judge, brought in specially from Denver, sentenced Brandt to 10 years for attempted kidnapping and assault. His ranch was seized and divided among the families he'd driven off their land. A week after the attack, Anna stood in her ruined garden trying not to cry over the destroyed seedlings. Spring was here, but she'd have to start all over. Mrs. Ward. She turned to find a line of women from town, each carrying baskets. We brought seedlings, Mrs. Patterson said. Everyone contributed something from their own gardens. I have tomatoes, said Mrs. Chen. Squash, added the minister's wife. Herbs, Eleanor said, having extended her stay after hearing about the attack. And something else. She produced a small rosebush. It's from your mother's garden. I had your aunt send it. Thought you should have something from home. Anna broke down completely, then sobbing as the women surrounded her with embraces and understanding. This was community. This was family. This was home in a way Boston society had never been. Together they replanted the garden, making it bigger and better than before. Ethan and the men built new fence posts while the women worked the soil, and by sunset the garden was transformed. That evening, as Anna and Ethan sat on the porch watching the sun paint the mountains gold, she said, I received another letter today. Ethan tensed. From who? My father's sister, Aunt Catherine. She's elderly, alone since Uncle Henry died. She wants to come live with us if we'll have her. Family is always welcome, Ethan said immediately. Might be nice having someone else around the place. She's very proper, Anna warned. Boston through and through. This life might shock her. Then we'll ease her into it, the way we did with you. I wasn't eased into anything, Anna protested. I was thrown into the deep end. And look how well you swam, Ethan said, pulling her close. Aunt Catherine arrived 3 weeks later, a tiny bird of a woman in her 70s with Anna's eyes and an unexpectedly sharp tongue. "So you're the rancher who saved my niece," she said, looking Ethan up and down. "You'll do." To everyone's surprise, Aunt Catherine adapted to ranch life with enthusiasm. She took over the vegetable garden, organized the pantry with military precision, and within a week had Tom eating out of her hand after she produced his mother's recipe for Irish stew from memory. "Your aunt's a force of nature," Billy said admiringly, after Catherine had faced down a snake in the garden with nothing but a hoe and harsh language. "She says it runs in the family," Anna replied, watching her aunt teach Miguel how to darn socks properly. May brought unexpected news. Eleanor, who'd been staying in town, had been corresponding with a lawyer from San Francisco who'd been handling some of Richard's estate issues. The man, James Ashford, had come to meet her in person, and what started as business had become something more. "He's asked me to marry him," Eleanor confided to Anna. "Is it wrong that I want to say yes? After everything with Richard, I thought I'd never trust again." "It's not wrong," Anna assured her. "It's brave. The bravest thing we can do after being hurt is to open our hearts again." The double wedding, Eleanor and James, and a renewal of vows for Anna and Ethan on their first anniversary was held in June when the wildflowers carpeted the valley. The entire town attended, turning the ranch into a fairground of celebration. "Why are we renewing vows?" Ethan had asked when Anna suggested it. "I meant them the first time." "Because the first time we were still strangers in many ways. Now we know each other, truly know each other. I want to promise myself to the man you really are not just the one I hoped you were." Standing before the minister again this time in a simple dress she'd made herself with the help of the town women, Anna looked at Ethan and saw everything their year had held: violence and tenderness, fear and safety, isolation and community. "I promise," she said, her voice carrying clearly, "to stand beside you through whatever comes, drought or plenty, danger or peace, sorrow or joy. I promise to make music with you in the darkness and to dance with you in the light. I promise that wherever this life takes us, we go together." Ethan's eyes were suspiciously bright as he responded, "I promise to be your shelter in every storm, your partner in every venture, your comfort in every sorrow. I promise to cherish your song, guard your dreams, and love you with everything I have, everything I am, until my last breath and beyond." When they kissed, the cheer that went up could probably be heard in town. Later, as the party continued around them, Anna and Ethan slipped away to their spot on the porch. The sunset was particularly spectacular, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. "Happy?" Ethan asked. "Beyond measure," Anna replied. "A year ago I was running terrified alone. Now look at all this." She gestured to their friends and neighbors, to Aunt Catherine teaching the minister's wife to play poker, to Tom dancing with Mrs. Patterson, to Billy and Miguel arguing over who caught the biggest fish last week. "You built this," Ethan said. "This community, this warmth, it all centers around you." "No," Anna corrected. "We built it, together." Summer brought its own challenges. A drought threatened the cattle, forcing them to drive the herd to higher pastures where water still flowed. Anna went with them, learning to ride properly, to rope, when needed, to read the weather in cloud formations and wind patterns. "You're becoming a real rancher's wife," Tom said approvingly after she helped bring in a stray calf. "I was always a rancher's wife," Anna replied. "I'm just becoming a rancher too." The drought broke in August with a storm that lasted 3 days. Lightning struck one of the barns, and only quick action from everyone saved it from burning completely. Working together in the rain, passing buckets hand to hand, Anna realized this was what Ethan had meant when he'd said they took care of their own. September brought an unexpected visitor. A young woman appeared at their door, heavily pregnant and clearly in distress. She wouldn't give her name, just begged for work, for shelter, for anything. "Please," she said through tears. "I have nowhere else to go." Anna saw herself a year ago, desperate, frightened, running from something or someone. Without hesitation, she brought the girl inside. "We don't need another hand," Ethan said quietly that evening. "We didn't need a cook either," Anna reminded him. "But you hired me anyway." He smiled, understanding. "What do we call her if she won't give her name? Hope." Anna decided. "We'll call her Hope." Hope's baby came early during another September storm. With no way to get to town for the doctor, Anna and Aunt Catherine delivered the child themselves, guided by Catherine's memories of attending births in Boston. "It's a girl," Anna announced, placing the squalling infant in Hope's arms. "Anna," Hope said through tears of joy. "Her name is Anna." Later, Hope told them her story, a familiar tale of a powerful man, false promises, abandonment when her condition became known. The father was a senator's son in Denver, untouchable by someone like her. "You're safe here," Anna promised, remembering Ethan's same words to her. "This is your home as long as you want it." October arrived with news that made Anna's heart sing. She'd suspected for weeks, but hadn't wanted to say anything until she was certain. "Ethan," she said one evening as they watched the first snow begin to fall, "we're going to need to add another room to the house." He looked at her blankly for a moment, then understanding dawned. "You mean by spring you'll be a father?" He swept her into his arms, spinning her around the kitchen while whooping loud enough to bring Tom running. "What's all the commotion?" the older man demanded. "We're having a baby," Ethan announced, grinning broader than Anna had ever seen. Tom's weathered face split into a matching grin. "About time. This place needs some little ones running around." The news spread quickly. Within days, the women of town had organized a quilting bee to make baby blankets, and the men had started arguing about who would teach the child to ride first. "It might be a girl," Anna pointed out to Billy, who was already planning fishing trips. "Even better," Billy declared. "Girls are tougher. Look at you and Miss Hope and Miss Catherine." As the first real snows of winter began to fall, Anna stood at the window watching Ethan and the men bring in the cattle to the closer pastures. Her hand rested on her still flat stomach, marveling at the life growing within. Hope came to stand beside her baby Anna in her arms. "You saved us," she said quietly. "You and Mr. Ward." "You saved yourself," Anna corrected. "You were brave enough to ask for help. That's the hardest thing sometimes." Aunt Catherine joined them, her sharp eyes soft with affection. "Your mother would be so proud," she told Anna. "You've built something beautiful here, a real family not just of blood, but of choice." That night, as had become their tradition, Anna and Ethan sat on the porch despite the cold. She sang while he played his fiddle, their music carrying across the snow-covered valley. But this time Hope's voice joined from the doorway, and even Aunt Catherine hummed along from her rocking chair by the fire inside. "Listen to that," Ethan said softly, pausing his playing. "The house is full of music." "Full of life," Anna corrected, "the way it was always meant to be." As if in agreement, the baby kicked for the first time, a flutter like butterfly wings. Anna gasped, grabbing Ethan's hand and placing it on her stomach. "Did you feel that?" His eyes widened with wonder. "Our child." "Our child, Jay," she confirmed. "Born free, born loved, born without fear." The wind picked up swirling snow across the porch, but Anna felt no cold. How could she surrounded by such warmth? A year and a half ago, she'd arrived here with nothing but a carpetbag and desperate hope. Now she had everything: a husband who cherished her, a family both given and chosen, a community that had become her fortress, and new life growing within her. "Thank you," she whispered to Ethan. "For what? For that advertisement. For taking a chance on an obvious liar with a mysterious past. For standing between me and the world until I was strong enough to stand beside you instead." "Anna," he said, his voice rough with emotion, "you were never weak. You were wounded. There's a difference. And watching you heal, watching you bloom, it's been the greatest privilege of my life." From inside came the sound of laughter. Tom was apparently teaching Aunt Catherine to play poker while Hope sang little Anna to sleep. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. Winter was long in Wyoming, and spring would bring the baby, adding beautiful chaos to their ordered life. But tonight, surrounded by love and laughter, with music filling the spaces that had once held only silence, Anna knew that every hard step of her journey had led her exactly where she belonged. The cook had become a wife, the wife had become the heart of a community, and the lonely ranch had become a home. As the snow continued to fall soft and silent, Anna began to sing again. Not a lullaby this time, but a song of gratitude, of abundance, of love that multiplied rather than divided. Ethan's fiddle joined her, and their music rose into the winter night, a testament to the power of second chances and the courage it takes to trust again after being broken. The Double W Ranch stood strong against the winter, no longer a refuge for just one lonely rancher, but a beacon of hope for all who needed shelter from their own storms. And at its heart were Anna and Ethan, proof that sometimes the greatest love stories begin not with perfection, but with two damaged souls brave enough to build something beautiful from the broken pieces of their pasts. Winter held the ranch in an iron grip that seemed determined never to let go. By February, the snow had piled so high that opening the door required genuine effort, and Anna's expanding belly made every movement an adventure in balance. She stood at the stove stirring a pot of stew when a sharp pain made her gasp and grab the counter. "Just moving," she murmured to herself, but Hope, who'd become as close as a sister, wasn't convinced. "That's the third time this morning," Hope observed, bouncing baby Anna on her hip. "Maybe you should rest." "Rest," Anna laughed, "with 6 people to feed and laundry that won't wash itself." "7 people," Aunt Catherine corrected, entering the kitchen with an armload of mending. "You're eating for 2, remember, and I'll handle the laundry. You've been looking pale lately." Before Anna could protest, another pain struck this one strong enough to double her over. The wooden spoon clattered to the floor. "Ethan," Hope called, but he was already there, having somehow sensed trouble from the barn. "What's wrong?" He was at Anna's side instantly, snow still melting from his coat. "Nothing, just—" Another pain cut off her words, and she felt a warm rush of fluid. Oh no, it's too early. The baby's not due for another month." Ethan's face went white, but his voice remained steady. "Tom, get the wagon ready. Billy ride for Doc Morrison." "Can't," Billy said from the doorway. "Bridge is out from the ice flow yesterday. No way to town for at least 3 days." Terror flickered in Ethan's eyes, but Anna gripped his hand. "Your mother delivered all her babies at home, didn't she? We can do this." Aunt Catherine took charge with the efficiency of a battlefield general. "Hope, boil water. Tom, we need clean linens. Miguel, take care of baby Anna. Ethan, get your wife to bed." The labor was long and difficult. Hour after hour, Anna fought to bring their child into the world while the blizzard raged outside. Ethan never left her side, letting her squeeze his hand until her nails drew blood, whispering encouragement when she wanted to give up. "I can't," she gasped after a particularly brutal contraction. "It's too hard." "You escaped Richard Thornton," Ethan reminded her fiercely. "You survived Brant's attack. You tamed this ranch and every ornery man on it. You're the strongest person I know, Anna Ward, and you can do this." "The baby's turned wrong," Aunt Catherine said quietly, her face grave. "I need to try to adjust the position." What followed was agony that made everything Anna had endured before pale in comparison. But finally, just as dawn broke through the storm clouds, a thin wail filled the room. "It's a boy," Aunt Catherine announced, tears streaming down her weathered face. "Small but fighting, just like his mother." Ethan's hands shook as he took his son for the first time. The baby was indeed tiny, fitting easily in his father's large palms, but his cry was strong and his grip, when he wrapped miniature fingers around Ethan's thumb, was determined. "What shall we name him?" Ethan asked, settling the baby against Anna's chest. She looked at their son, dark hair like his father, her nose and eyes that would likely be gray when they settled, and knew instantly. Samuel Thomas Ward, after your father and Tom." Tom, who'd been hovering in the doorway trying to pretend he wasn't crying, broke down completely. That's right kind of you, ma'am." Samuel's early arrival and small size meant constant vigilance. Anna barely slept, checking his breathing every few minutes, terrified he'd slip away in the night. Ethan was no better, often found standing over the cradle at 3 in the morning, one hand on the baby's back to feel the rise and fall of his tiny chest. It was Hope who finally intervened. "You're both going to collapse," she said firmly. "Let Aunt Catherine and me take shifts at night. This baby needs parents who are conscious during the day." The arrangement worked, creating a rhythm of shared care that bound them all closer. Samuel thrived under the attention of his extended family, gaining weight and strength with each passing week. By the time the spring thaw came, He was a chubby, cheerful baby who had everyone on the ranch wrapped around his tiny fingers. The first real test came when Samuel was 3 months old. A fever struck in the night, sending his temperature soaring. With the roads still muddy and treacherous from snowmelt, they couldn't get to town quickly. "We need to bring the fever down," Aunt Catherine said, her usual confidence shaken. "Cold baths, willow bark tea if we can get him to take it." They worked through the night, taking turns walking him, singing to him, bathing his hot skin with cool cloths. Anna sang every lullaby she knew, her voice hoarse by morning. Ethan played his fiddle softly, the gentle melodies seeming to calm the baby's restless crying. By dawn, the fever broke. Samuel opened his eyes, looking at his parents with perfect clarity, and smiled his first real smile. "He's a fighter," Doc Morrison said when he finally made it to the ranch 2 days later. "Gets it from both sides, I'd say." Spring brought other changes. Hope had been corresponding with her cousin in California, a widow with 3 children who ran a boarding house in Sacramento. The woman had offered Hope a position and a chance at a new life where nobody knew her story. "I don't want to leave," Hope confessed to Anna, watching their children play on a blanket in the new grass. "But maybe Anna deserves to grow up somewhere she won't be whispered about." "People whisper everywhere," Anna said gently. "What matters is having people who love you louder than the whispers. But the opportunity will still be there if you decide you want it later. Hope you're family now. Family doesn't have to leave unless they want to." Hope chose to stay, and her decision was validated when something unexpected happened at the spring social. James Peterson, the new school teacher, asked her to dance. He was young, earnest, and completely unbothered by her situation. "I know about the baby," he told her frankly during their third dance. "I don't care. We all have pasts. I'm interested in futures." Watching Hope blush and smile, Anna felt a deep satisfaction. Second chances, it seemed, were becoming something of a specialty at the Double W Ranch. The peaceful spring was shattered in May when riders approached the ranch at full gallop. Anna recognized Eleanor immediately, but she'd never seen her friend so distraught. "They took him," Eleanor gasped, practically falling from her horse. "James! They took James!" "Who took him?" Ethan demanded, already reaching for his gun. "Train robbers. The Watson gang. They found out James was carrying bank documents for a big land deal. They want $50,000 or they'll kill him." "50,000, Tom whistled. "Nobody has that kind of money." "The bank does," Eleanor said desperately. "But they won't pay. They say it would encourage more robberies." "Anna, please, I don't know what to do." Anna looked at Ethan, seeing her own determination reflected in his eyes. "We get him back," she said simply. "The Watson gang has a hideout in Devil's Canyon, don't they?" "You can't be thinking of going after them," Billy protested. "There's at least 8 of them, maybe more." "Then we'd better bring more men," Ethan said grimly. He turned to Miguel. "Ride to town. Tell Morrison what's happened. Then stop at every ranch between here and there. Tell them the Double W is calling in favors." By nightfall, 20 men had gathered at the ranch. Some Anna recognized, others were strangers, but all had the same determined look. These were men who understood that in the frontier you protected your own. "I'm going with you," Anna announced, causing immediate uproar. "Absolutely not," Ethan said firmly. "You have Samuel to think about. Samuel has plenty of people to care for him for one night. And you need me. I'm the best shot on this ranch after Tom, and you know it." It was true. Ethan had taught her to shoot over the winter, and she'd taken to it with natural ability that surprised everyone. "Anna, Eleanor came to me for help. James is family. Family doesn't abandon family. Remember?" The argument might have continued, but Aunt Catherine intervened. "Oh, for heaven's sake, let her go. I've seen that look before. Her mother had it too. Ward's stubbornness. She'll just follow you anyway if you leave her behind." They rode out at midnight, Anna dressed in Tom's spare clothes, her hair tucked under a hat. The moon was new, leaving them to navigate by starlight and memory. Devil's Canyon loomed before them like a mouthful of broken teeth. "There," Tom whispered, pointing to a flicker of firelight deep in the canyon. "That's their camp." Ethan divided the men into 3 groups. "We go in quiet. The goal is to get James out alive, not to have a bloodbath." Anna was assigned to Tom's group, providing cover from the ridge. As she settled into position with her rifle, she thought of Samuel sleeping peacefully at home, of Eleanor's desperate face, of all the violence she'd hoped to leave behind when she'd married Ethan. But some fights couldn't be avoided. Some battles chose you. The attack was swift and decisive. Ethan's group created a distraction with a staged stampede of horses, while the second group freed James from where he was tied near the outlaws' remuda. Anna's job was to prevent any of the gang from pursuing. When one of the outlaws broke free and ran for his horse, clearly intending to sound an alarm to others who might be nearby, Anna didn't hesitate. Her shot took him in the shoulder, spinning him around and dropping him to the ground. "That's my wife," she heard Ethan say with fierce pride. James was badly beaten, but alive. They got him onto a horse and rode hard for the ranch, expecting pursuit that never came. The Watson gang, it seemed, had decided one hostage wasn't worth taking on half the valley. Eleanor's reunion with James was tearful and tender. As Doc Morrison tended his injuries, James managed a weak smile. "Guess I'm really part of the family now if you're willing to take on outlaws for me." "Family's family," Ethan said simply. The summer that followed was one of growth and prosperity. The cattle thrived, the garden produced abundantly, and Samuel grew into a curious, adventurous child who seemed determined to explore every dangerous corner of the ranch. "He's going to give me gray hair before I'm 30, and Anna complained, pulling him away from the horse corral for the third time in a day. "You say that like it's a bad thing," Ethan teased, kissing her temple. "I think you'd look distinguished with gray hair." Their playful moment was interrupted by the arrival of an unexpected visitor, a well-dressed man in a city suit who looked completely out of place on the ranch. "I'm looking for Hope Sanders," he announced. Hope, who'd been helping with the laundry, went pale. "That's me." "I'm Lawrence Whitman, attorney at law. I represent the estate of Senator Harrison's son, recently deceased in a railway accident." Anna moved protectively closer to Hope, but the lawyer raised a peaceful hand. "I'm not here to cause trouble, Miss Sanders. Quite the opposite. Before his death, my client legally recognized your daughter as his heir. She stands to inherit a considerable fortune, but there are conditions." "What kind of conditions?" James Peterson asked, stepping up beside Hope. They'd been courting steadily since the spring social, and his protective stance made his feelings clear. "The child must be raised with proper education and social standing. The estate will provide funds for this, but regular reports must be submitted to ensure the terms are met." "She's barely 2 years old," Hope protested. "The terms are quite generous," the lawyer continued. "A house in Denver or San Francisco, annual income of $5,000, and a trust fund that she'll receive at 21. Hope looked around at the faces of her chosen family. Anna's concern, Ethan's steady presence, James's quiet support, Aunt Catherine's shrewd evaluation. "What if I don't want her raised in a city?" Hope asked. "What if I want her to grow up here where she's loved?" The lawyer adjusted his spectacles. "The terms specify proper education and standing. If you could prove that she's receiving both here—" "I'm a qualified teacher," James said suddenly. "I could provide private tutoring that would exceed any city school's curriculum." "And I was raised in Boston society," Aunt Catherine added. "I could ensure she learns all the social graces deemed proper by city standards." The lawyer considered this. "It's unconventional, but if you're willing to submit to yearly inspections and examinations of the child's progress, I believe we could make it work." Hope signed the papers with a shaking hand, then burst into tears. "I never wanted his money. I just wanted him to acknowledge her." "Now she'll never want for anything," James said softly. "And when you marry me, which you will, Hope Sanders, as soon as you're ready, she'll have a father who chose her, not one who was forced to claim her." The proposal, unexpected in public, left Hope speechless. But her kiss gave answer enough, and the ranch had another celebration to plan. As summer turned to autumn, Anna noticed changes in herself. Familiar changes that made her both excited and nervous. She waited until she was certain before telling Ethan. "Again," he said, his face lighting up like sunrise. "Another baby." "Another baby," she confirmed. "Due in the spring if my calculations are right." Samuel, now walking on unsteady legs, seemed to understand the excitement. "Baby," he said, one of his few words, patting Anna's stomach with chubby hands. "That's right, sweetheart. You're going to be a big brother." The pregnancy progressed smoothly this time, perhaps because Anna knew what to expect, or perhaps because the ranch had become such a haven of support. Hope and James married in October, a simple ceremony in the parlor with baby Anna as flower girl and Samuel as ring bearer, though he mostly just chewed on the ribbon tied to the pillow. Winter arrived early and harsh, but the ranch was ready. They'd laid in supplies, reinforced the buildings, and prepared for the isolation that heavy snow would bring. What they hadn't prepared for was the sickness. It started with Miguel, just a cough at first, then fever, then struggle for every breath. Within days, it had spread through the bunkhouse and into the main house. The influenza Doc Morrison called it when he finally made it through the snow. He'd seen it in town, too, spreading like wildfire through close quarters. "Keep them warm, give them fluids, and pray," he said grimly. "It's all we can do." The next weeks were a nightmare of sickroom duties and fear. Tom was hit hardest, his age working against him. For 3 days, he hovered between life and death while Anna and Aunt Catherine took turns nursing him. "Can't die yet," Tom muttered in a moment of clarity. "Haven't taught Samuel to fish." "Then you'd better get well," Anna told him firmly, spooning broth into his mouth. "He's going to need those lessons." Miraculously, no one died, though it was close with Tom and baby Anna. By the time the sickness passed, they were all exhausted, thin, and shaken. "We survived," Ethan said one evening, holding Anna and Samuel close. "All of us. That's what matters. We're tougher than we look." Anna agreed, feeling the baby kick within her. This child she thought would be born into a family that had been tested by everything. Weather, violence, illness, fear, and had emerged stronger each time. Spring came late, but beautiful, the valley exploding with wildflowers, as if making up for the harsh winter. Anna's labor began on a perfect April morning, with birds singing and a warm breeze carrying the scent of apple blossoms from the trees they'd planted the previous year. This birth was easier, or perhaps Anna was simply stronger. After only 6 hours, she delivered a daughter with Ethan's dark hair and her own blue eyes. "Grace," Anna said immediately. "Grace Margaret Ward." "After my mother." Ethan's voice was thick with emotion. "She brought Grace to this place once. Now her namesake will do the same." Grace was a peaceful baby, content to watch the world with wise eyes while her brother created chaos around her. Samuel adored his sister from the first moment, bringing her presents of rocks, flowers, and once memorably a very confused toad. The ranch thrived that spring and summer. The cattle brought good prices. The garden produced enough to sell surplus in town, and the sense of community they'd built grew stronger. The Double W had become not just a ranch, but a landmark, a place where those in need could find shelter, where second chances were given freely, where family was defined by choice rather than blood. It was August when the letter came that would change everything again. Anna recognized the handwriting immediately, her father's lawyer in Boston. "Your father has died," she read aloud to Ethan, her voice steady despite the complex emotions churning within her. "He left his entire estate to you, his only child. The value is considerable, nearly $200,000. Ethan whistled low. "That's enough to buy half of Wyoming." Anna continued reading. "There's one condition. You must return to Boston to claim it in person and attend to the disposal of his properties." "We don't need the money," Ethan said immediately. "We have everything we need here." "But think what we could do with it," Anna said slowly. "We could buy the Hendersons' old place, give Tom and the boys their own spreads if they wanted. We could build a school for the valley's children. We could ensure Samuel and Grace have choices in life." "You want to go back?" Ethan's voice was carefully neutral. Anna looked around the kitchen at the marks on the doorframe showing Samuel's growth, at Grace sleeping in her cradle, at the view through the window of the mountains she'd come to love more than any Boston mansion. "I want to go back long enough to claim what's ours and close that chapter forever," she said firmly. "Boston is my past. This is my future. But that money could secure that future for our children and our community." They prepared for the journey carefully. Aunt Catherine would stay to manage the ranch with Tom's help. Hope and James would move into the main house temporarily to help with the children. The journey would take at least 2 months, 2 weeks to get there, time to settle affairs and the return journey. "You'll come back," Hope said, but it sounded like a question. Wild horses couldn't keep us away, Anna promised. This is home. The night before they left, the entire valley seemed to gather at the ranch. It wasn't planned, but word had spread and people came to wish them well, and Anna suspected to assure themselves that the Wards really would return. You changed this place, Mrs. Patterson said, embracing Anna warmly. Don't let those city folks change you back. Never, Anna assured her. As their stage pulled away the next morning, Anna turned for one last look at the Double W. The house stood solid against the mountains, smoke rising from the chimney, the garden lush with late summer growth. On the porch, she could see their family blood and Chosen waving goodbye. Second thoughts? Ethan asked, taking her hand. No, Anna said firmly. We're going to Boston to secure our children's future. Then we're coming home. The journey east was a reverse of Anna's desperate flight west years ago. This time she traveled in comfort with a husband who cherished her and children who delighted her. Samuel was endlessly curious about the changing landscape, while Grace seemed content to sleep through most of the journey. As they crossed into more settled territory, Anna noticed Ethan growing increasingly uncomfortable with the crowds and noise of cities. How do they stand it? He muttered in St. Louis, watching the pressed humanity on the streets. All these people living on top of each other. You get used to it, Anna said, then reconsidered. Or maybe you just don't know there's anything better until you find it. They reached Boston on a gray September day, the air thick with coal smoke and sea salt. Anna's father's house stood in Beacon Hill, as imposing and cold as she remembered. This is where you grew up? Ethan asked, staring at the 4-story brownstone. This is where I lived, Anna corrected. I grew up on a ranch in Wyoming. The lawyer, Mr. Pemberton, no relation, he assured them, was efficient and professional. The estate was larger than anticipated, with holdings in several businesses and properties throughout New England. It will take at least a month to properly transfer everything, he explained. There are documents to sign, properties to inspect, buyers to meet with if you intend to sell. Anna had prepared for this, but the reality of a month in Boston in her father's house, with all its memories, was daunting. The first night she stood in her childhood bedroom staring at the portrait of her mother that still hung on the wall. She would have loved you, she told Ethan. She always said I should marry for love, not position. Father never forgave her for that romantic notion. Yet he left you everything, Ethan pointed out. Maybe he had regrets. Maybe, Anna agreed, but it's too late for reconciliation now. The weeks in Boston were a trial by society. Word had spread of Anna's return. The girl who'd fled a society wedding married a rancher and now stood to inherit one of Boston's great fortunes. Invitations poured in, most of which Anna declined. But some couldn't be avoided without causing the kind of offense that might complicate the estate settlement. At one particularly tedious dinner party, Anna found herself cornered by Mrs. Thornton Richards' mother. You destroyed my son, the woman hissed, her eyes bright with malice. Your son destroyed himself, Anna replied quietly. I merely refused to be one of his victims. He loved you. He would have given you everything. He would have taken everything, Anna corrected, including my life eventually. I'm sorry for your loss, Mrs. Thornton, but I won't apologize for surviving. Ethan appeared at her elbow, then solid and protective. Is there a problem here? Mrs. Thornton looked him up and down dismissively. So this is the rancher. How quaint. This is my husband, Anna said firmly, and a better man than your son ever was. They left the party early, walking through the gaslit streets of Boston. Samuel rode on Ethan's shoulders, while Anna carried Grace, who was fussing from the unfamiliar environment. One more week, Ethan said, then we can go home. Home, Samuel repeated happily. Want home. Want Tom and Aunt Katrine and horsies. Me too, little man, Ethan said. Me too. The last documents were signed on a crisp October morning. Anna had liquidated most of the holdings, keeping only a few investments that could be managed from Wyoming. The cash would be transferred to banks in Denver and Cheyenne, accessible but not ostentatious. You could live like a queen with this money, Mr. Pemberton said, as Anna signed the final papers. I already do, Anna replied. Just not the kind of queen Boston would recognize. They left that afternoon, catching the last train west. As the city disappeared behind them, Anna felt like she could breathe properly for the first time in weeks. "We did it," she said to Ethan. "We faced the past and secured the future. And now we go home," he said, pulling her close, "to our real life." The journey back seemed shorter, perhaps because they were eager, or perhaps because they knew what waited for them. As they drew closer to Wyoming, both children grew excited, as if they could sense the approaching familiarity. When the stage finally crested the ridge above the valley and the double W came into view, Anna's eyes filled with tears. "Look," she told the children, "there's home." The entire population of the valley seemed to be waiting at the ranch. Banners reading "Welcome Home" hung from the porch, and tables groaned under the weight of food the women had prepared. Tom was the first to reach them, swinging Samuel up into his arms. "About time you got back. This boy's fish have been waiting for him." Aunt Catherine, trying to maintain her dignity, failed completely when Grace reached for her with chubby arms. "Oh, my dear ones, how we've missed you." Hope and James had news of their own. Hope was pregnant due in the spring. "We wanted to wait to tell you in person," Hope said, glowing with happiness. That night, after the celebration had died down and the children were asleep, Anna and Ethan sat on their porch, looking out over their land. The mountains were already topped with snow, warning of the winter to come. "Do you regret it?" Ethan asked. "Giving up that life, all that luxury?" Anna thought of the Boston mansion now sold to a railroad magnate. She thought of the parties, the dresses, the ease that money could buy. "I gave up nothing," she said finally. "I gained everything. That life was a prison with golden bars. This—" She gestured to the vast landscape, the warm house behind them, the knowledge that their children slept safe, and their family, all of it was near. "This is freedom. Even with the hard work, the isolation, the danger." "Especially with those things," Anna said. "They make us strong. They make us real. They make us appreciate what we have." From inside came the sound of Samuel calling out in his sleep, a brief nightmare that would need soothing. Anna rose to go to him, but paused to kiss Ethan first. "Thank you," she said, "for that advertisement, for taking a chance on a desperate woman, for becoming the man I never dared to dream existed." "Anna," he said, catching her hand, "you saved me too. This ranch was just a place where I existed before you came. You made it a home. You made me whole." She went inside to comfort their son, and Ethan heard her voice singing the lullaby that had become the soundtrack of their lives. Soon, Samuel's voice joined in, sleepy but determined, and then he heard Aunt Catherine humming along from her room. This was wealth, Ethan thought. This was success. Not the money sitting in banks, though. That would help secure their children's futures. Not the land, though he loved every acre. But these voices in harmony, this family forged from chance and choice, this love that had grown from desperation into something unshakable. As if in agreement, Grace began to cry, and Ethan went to her, picking up his daughter and carrying her to the window where moonlight streamed in. "See that?" he whispered to her. "All that land, someday it'll be yours and Samuel's. But more than that, you'll have what your mother and I built, a place where anyone who needs shelter can find it, where second chances are given freely, where family means more than blood." Grace gurgled happily, reaching for his face with tiny hands. From the doorway, Anna watched them, her heart so full she thought it might burst. She'd run west to escape a nightmare, and had found a dream she hadn't known existed. The lonely rancher who'd wanted just a cook had gotten a wife, children, and a family that extended throughout the valley. And she, the desperate woman who'd answered an advertisement with lies and hope, had found truth, love, and a home that no amount of money could buy. "Come back to bed," she told Ethan softly. "Tomorrow will bring its own challenges." "Let it," Ethan said, settling Grace back in her cradle. "We'll face them together like we always do." As they settled into sleep, the house grew quiet except for the wind singing through the windows and the distant howl of wolves in the mountains. But these sounds no longer frightened Anna. They were the music of home, the symphony of a life chosen rather than inherited, built rather than bought. And in the morning, when the sun painted the mountains gold and the ranch came alive with the sounds of daily life, Anna would rise to make breakfast for her family, blood and chosen, and thank God for the desperate courage that had brought her to that stagecoach platform years ago to answer an advertisement for a cook and to find instead everything she'd never known she needed. The sound of thunder woke Anna from restless sleep, though no storm clouds darkened the sky. She sat up, recognizing the rumble for what it was, horses, many of them riding hard toward the ranch. Ethan was already at the window, rifle in hand, his face grim in the pre-dawn light. "Trouble?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "Maybe 20 riders coming fast from the north." He turned to her, his eyes serious. "Get the children to the root cellar. Wake Aunt Catherine and Hope." But before Anna could move, Tom's voice rang out from the yard. "Boss, you need to see this. They're carrying a white flag." The riders reined in just outside the ranch gate, their horses lathered and breathing hard. The man at their head was someone Anna had never expected to see again, Judge Hartford from Denver, the one who had presided over her case against Richard Thornton years ago. "Judge?" Ethan lowered his rifle but didn't put it away. "What brings you to the Double W at this ungodly hour?" Hartford dismounted, his usually composed face haggard with exhaustion. "Mr. Ward, Mrs. Ward, I'm afraid I bring dire news. There's been a prison break in Colorado. 5 men escaped 3 days ago, killed 2 guards in the process." Anna's blood chilled. "Who escaped?" "Marcus Brandt, Josiah's brother. He's sworn vengeance for his brother's imprisonment, and—" Hartford hesitated, his eyes finding Anna's. "There was another man claimed to be Richard Thornton's cousin from Philadelphia, Vincent Thornton. He's been telling anyone who'll listen that you murdered Richard and framed him for crimes he didn't commit." "Richard died in prison," Anna said steadily, "in a fight with other inmates. I know that you know that, but Vincent's spreading a different story. Says Richard was murdered on your orders, that you've built your fortune on blood money." Hartford rubbed his face wearily. "He's gathered quite a following among the criminal element. They're heading this way." Samuel appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Papa." "What's wrong?" "Nothing, son. Go back to bed." But Samuel had inherited his mother's stubbornness and his father's protective instincts. Even at 4 years old, he recognized danger. "Bad men coming?" he asked, his little face serious. "Maybe," Ethan admitted, kneeling to his son's level. "But we'll keep everyone safe. We always do." The judge's men spread out to defensive positions around the ranch while the family gathered in the main house. James Peterson had grabbed his rifle and come running from the small cabin he shared with Hope, their infant son and baby Anna. "How long do we have?" James asked. "Day, maybe 2, Hartford replied. "My scouts lost them in the Badlands, but their direction was clear. They're coming here." "Then we make ready," Ethan said simply. "Tom, check our ammunition." "Miguel, Billy, start bringing the horses in from the far pasture. James, ride to town, tell Sheriff Morrison what's happening." "I'll go with him," one of Hartford's men offered. "Make it official." As the men dispersed, Anna noticed Hope standing frozen in the doorway. Her baby clutched to her chest, fear etched across her face. Anna went to her, understanding all too well the terror of being hunted. "We've faced worse," Anna reminded her gently. "And we're stronger now. We have more to fight for. What if they get past our defenses? What if—" "Then we do what we must to protect our children," Anna said firmly. "But it won't come to that. This ranch, these people, we don't break easily." The day passed in tense preparation. Weapons were cleaned and loaded, windows were boarded, supplies were moved to the reinforced root cellar. The women worked alongside the men, years of frontier living having taught them that survival required everyone's effort. It was Aunt Catherine who noticed the smoke first, a black column rising from the direction of town. "Fire," she said simply, and everyone understood. The outlaws weren't coming straight for the ranch, they were cutting off potential help first. "They're smarter than we gave them credit for," Tom muttered. Sheriff Morrison arrived just before sunset, his clothes singed and his face grim. "They hit the telegraph office first, then the livery stable. Nobody killed yet, but half the town's fighting fires. I brought who I could spare 6 men, but most are needed there." "It's a diversion," Ethan realized. "They want us isolated, want the town too busy to help." "Then they don't know us very well," Morrison said with a hard smile. The fires are under control and Mrs. Patterson's organizing the women. If these bastards think they can terrorize our valley, they're about to learn different. That night, Anna couldn't sleep. She walked the house, checking on the children repeatedly. Grace slept peacefully in her crib, unaware of the danger. Samuel, however, was wide awake, sitting by his window with the toy rifle Tom had carved for him. "I protect Grace," he said solemnly, when Anna tried to coax him back to bed. "That's very brave," Anna said, smoothing his dark hair. "But that's what Papa and I are here for, to protect you both." "But who protects you?" Samuel asked with a child's direct logic. "We protect each other," Anna said. "That's what family does." The attack came at dawn, not with the frontal assault they'd expected, but with cunning violence. Fire arrows arced through the morning air, targeting the barn and outbuildings. As the men rushed to fight the flames, riders burst from 3 directions at once. Anna was in the kitchen when a window shattered. Vincent Thornton stood there, his face twisted with hate, so like Richard's it made her stomach turn. "Hello, Anna. Time to pay for your sins." She reached for the shotgun mounted beside the door, but he was faster, lunging through the broken window and grabbing her wrist. They struggled, Anna fighting with the desperate strength of a mother protecting her young. She could hear Ethan shouting gunfire from multiple directions, Grace crying upstairs. "You killed him," Vincent snarled, trying to wrestle the gun away. "My cousin was worth 10 of you." "Your cousin was a monster," Anna spat back, driving her knee into his stomach. He doubled over and she broke free, but before she could reach the shotgun, another figure appeared, Marcus Brandt, older and meaner than his brother Josiah. Well, the lady rancher herself. Josiah wrote me about you, said you were pretty enough to make a man forget his purpose." His smile was cold. "I don't have that problem." The blast of a rifle made both men duck. Aunt Catherine stood on the stairs, Tom's spare rifle smoking in her hands. "The next one won't be a warning shot," she said calmly, though Anna could see her hands trembling. The house became a battlefield. Hope had barricaded herself and the babies in the root cellar, while James and Billy defended the back entrance. Ethan and Tom were pinned down in the barn, exchanging fire with at least 6 outlaws. Miguel had been hit in the shoulder but kept fighting from behind an overturned wagon. Anna grabbed the shotgun and took position at the front window. She could see riders circling, looking for weak points. One of them was setting up what looked like dynamite near the well house. "If they destroy the well," Aunt Catherine began. "They won't," Anna said grimly, sighting down the barrel. The shot was long for a shotgun, but she had no choice. She fired, and the man with the dynamite spun and fell, the explosive rolling harmlessly away. "Where did you learn to shoot like that?" Vincent demanded. He and Brandt had taken cover behind the kitchen table, temporarily trapped by the crossfire. "My husband taught me," Anna replied, reloading. "He taught me a lot of things. How to survive, how to fight, how to protect what's mine." "This won't end here," Brandt growled. "Even if you win today, more will come. There's a bounty on your head now, $5,000 to whoever brings you to Philadelphia to stand trial for Richard's murder." "Let them come," Anna said. "I'm done running." A child's scream cut through the gunfire. Samuel had somehow gotten out of his room and was standing at the top of the stairs, frozen in terror as a bullet shattered the window near his head. "Samuel!" Anna abandoned her position, racing for her son. Vincent saw his chance and lunged after her, catching her halfway up the stairs. They tumbled down together, Anna protecting her head as they crashed into the hallway wall. Vincent's hands found her throat, squeezing. "You'll pay for what you did to my family." Black spots danced in Anna's vision. She clawed at his hands, but his grip was too strong. Then suddenly, his weight was gone and she could breathe. Ethan stood over Vincent's unconscious form, his rifle butt bloodied. "Nobody touches my wife," he said, helping Anna to her feet. The tide turned when unexpected reinforcements arrived. The women of the valley, led by Mrs. Patterson and armed with everything from rifles to kitchen knives, descended on the ranch like avenging angels. They'd left the older children to manage the remaining fires in town and come to fight. "Nobody attacks our families, son," Mrs. Patterson declared, shooting an outlaw who was trying to sneak toward the chicken coop. "Not in our valley." The battle was fierce but brief after that. Outnumbered and outgunned, the surviving outlaws tried to flee. Hartford's men, who'd been holding the perimeter, caught most of them. Vincent Thornton and Marcus Brandt were taken alive. Though Vincent was nursing a probable concussion, and Brant had a bullet in his leg courtesy of Hope, who'd emerged from the cellar at exactly the right moment. As the smoke cleared and the wounded were tended, Anna stood in her ruined kitchen surveying the damage. Windows, broken walls peppered with bullet holes, furniture destroyed, but her family was alive. That was all that mattered. "Mama hurt?" Grace asked, toddling over with arms raised. Anna scooped her up, holding her close. "No, sweetheart. Mama's fine. We're all fine." Judge Hartford approached his face grim but satisfied. "Vincent Thornton and Marcus Brant will hang for the guards they killed. The others will get long sentences. You won't have to worry about them anymore." "There'll be others," Anna said quietly. "That bounty." "Already taken care of," Hartford interrupted. "I've been in contact with judges in Philadelphia. Turns out Vincent Thornton has quite a criminal history there: fraud, assault, attempted murder. Any bounty he posted is invalid, and anyone who tries to collect it will be arrested." Relief flooded through Anna, making her knees weak. Ethan's arm came around her steady and strong. "It's over," he said. "Really over this time." But the cost of victory became clear as the adrenaline faded. Miguel's shoulder wound was serious enough to require Doc Morrison's immediate attention. Tom had burns on his hands from fighting the barn fire. James had a gash across his forehead that would leave a permanent scar. The ranch itself was badly damaged. Half the barn was gone. The well house was destroyed, and the main house would need extensive repairs. The garden Anna had lovingly tended was trampled beyond salvage. "We can rebuild, Ethan said that evening as they stood surveying the destruction. "We have the money now, thanks to your father's inheritance."
"It's not about the money," Anna said, exhaustion making her voice thick. I'm so tired of fighting, tired of looking over my shoulder waiting for the next threat." "Then we make sure there isn't a next threat," Ethan said firmly. "We use that money not just to rebuild, but to strengthen. Better defenses, more hands connections with law enforcement beyond just Sheriff Morrison." Over the next weeks, the ranch was transformed. The inheritance money paid for not just repairs, but improvements. They hired more men, good men with families who needed work. They built better fortifications, nothing obvious, but strategic placements that would make any future attack costly for aggressors. More importantly, they strengthened their ties with the community. The shared battle had bonded the valley's residents even closer. A formal mutual defense agreement was drawn up. Any attack on one ranch would be considered an attack on all. Vincent Thornton's trial was brief. The evidence against him was overwhelming, and his association with Marcus Brant sealed his fate. On the day of his execution, Anna didn't attend, but she stood on her porch thinking of Richard, of Vincent, of all the violence that had followed her west. "Any regrets?" Aunt Catherine asked, joining her. "No," Anna said after a moment. "Sadness, maybe, for what might have been if they'd been different men. But no regrets. Every hard thing led me here to this life, this family." As spring turned to summer, life settled into a new rhythm. The expanded ranch required more management, and Anna found herself taking on the role of administrator while Ethan handled the cattle operation. She had a gift for numbers and organization that surprised everyone, including herself. "You're a natural businesswoman," James said admiringly after she'd negotiated a particularly favorable contract with the railroad for beef shipments. "I learned from watching my father," Anna admitted. "He was cold and distant, but he was brilliant with investments. I guess I inherited more than just his money." The children thrived in the peaceful months that followed. Samuel became Tom's shadow, learning to rope and ride with determination that belied his young age. Grace toddled after the chickens, chattering in a language only she understood, bringing joy wherever she went. Hope and James's son William was crawling now, and baby Anna, no longer such a baby at nearly 4, had started helping Aunt Catherine in the kitchen, standing on a stool to stir pots under careful supervision. One evening in late July, as the extended family gathered for dinner, Anna looked around the table and marveled at how much had changed. The lonely rancher who'd posted an advertisement for a cook now presided over a full house, a thriving operation, and a family bound by choice and struggle rather than mere blood. "I have an announcement," Hope said suddenly, her cheeks pink. "James and we're expecting again." The congratulations were enthusiastic, but Anna noticed a shadow in Hope's eyes. Later, as they washed dishes together, she asked, "What's troubling you?" "I got a letter," Hope admitted. From William's grandfather, the senator. He's dying and wants to see his grandchildren before he passes. And I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to deny him the way he denied us when we needed help. But another part, Hope sighed, maybe I just want him to see how well we've done despite him. Then go, Anna said simply. Show him what he missed by choosing pride over family, but go on your terms with your head high. The trip was arranged for September with James taking time from his teaching duties to accompany Hope and the children. Anna watched them leave with mixed emotions, remembering her own journey back east to claim her inheritance. The ranch felt quieter without them, but there was plenty to keep everyone busy.
The fall roundup was approaching, and this year they'd be driving cattle to 3 different railheads to fulfill contracts Anna had negotiated. It was during the roundup that Tom collapsed. One moment he was in the saddle, the next, he was on the ground clutching his chest. They got him back to the house, and Doc Morrison was summoned, but his prognosis was grim. His heart's giving out, Morrison said quietly. Been working too hard for too many years. He needs complete rest, and even then I'm dying, Tom said bluntly from his bed. No point sugaring it. Doc, how long? Could be weeks, could be months. Maybe a year if you're careful. Tom snorted. Careful, that's a word that comes too late to mean much. Anna sat with him that evening while Ethan managed the roundup. Tom was weak but alert, his eyes still sharp despite his body's betrayal. I ever tell you why I stayed on here so long? Tom asked suddenly. Because Ethan's father hired you. No, that's how I came. I stayed because this place, it has a way of holding on to people who need holding. I was running too when I first came here, not from the law but from myself, from things I'd done in the war that haunted me. Anna took his weathered hand in hers. We all have our ghosts. You showed me something, though, Tom continued. When you came here scared and desperate but still fighting, you showed me that the past doesn't have to define the future, that we can choose to be better than we were. Tom, let me finish. I've written it all down in that box under my bunk, my real name, my history, where I came from. There's family back in Ohio who think I'm dead. When I'm gone, could you write to them? Let them know I found peace at the end. You're not dying yet, Anna said firmly, though tears coursed down her cheeks. No, but I want to say this while I can. You and Ethan, you saved me as much as you saved each other. This ranch became the home I never thought I'd have again. And watching those babies grow being part of this family you've built, it's been the greatest privilege of my worn-out life. Tom lived through the winter defying Doc Morrison's predictions through sheer stubbornness. He couldn't ride anymore, but he could sit on the porch and direct operations teaching Samuel and even little Grace about ranch life through stories and demonstrations with carved wooden figures. Hope and James returned from their trip east with stories of their own. The senator had indeed been dying, and faced with his mortality had shown a humanity he'd hidden his entire life. He cried when he held William, Hope said wonderingly. This man who'd had me thrown out of his son's funeral, he cried and asked for forgiveness. Did you give it? Anna asked. I told him forgiveness was earned through action, not words. So he changed his will. Everything that would have gone to distant cousins now goes to William and Anna. Not just money, but legitimacy. Legal recognition as his grandchildren. The winter was mild by Wyoming standards, which everyone took as a blessing given Tom's condition and the 2 pregnant women in the house, Hope, and to everyone's surprise and delight, Anna again. Another baby, Ethan had said when she'd told him, his face lighting up despite the challenges they'd faced. Anna, are you sure? Very sure. Due in early summer, I think. The house is getting crowded, he pointed out, but he was smiling. Then we'll build more rooms. We have the money and we have the need. Construction began in March as soon as the ground thawed enough to dig foundations. They were adding a whole wing to the house, more bedrooms, a larger kitchen, and a room specifically for Aunt Catherine, who was getting older and deserved a space of her own. Tom watched the construction from his chair on the porch, offering advice and criticism in equal measure. Samuel spent hours with him, absorbing every word, every story. It was as if Tom was trying to pour all his knowledge into the boy before time ran out. He's going to remember you, Anna told Tom one afternoon. Both children will. We'll make sure of it. That's all any of us can ask for. Tom replied. To be remembered by those who matter. Hope's baby came first, another boy named Thomas after Tom, which brought the old cowboy to tears. Anna's labor began 2 weeks later on the summer solstice, with the whole household in attendance. This birth was different from the others, easier in some ways, harder in others. The baby was large and strong, but Anna was older now, more tired. It took 15 hours before their second daughter arrived screaming and healthy. What should we name her? Ethan asked, cradling the newborn while Anna recovered. Joy, Anna said without hesitation, because that's what she brings. Tom lived long enough to hold Joy to see her eyes open and focus on his weathered face. Another fighter, he pronounced. She's got the look. He died peacefully 3 nights later, simply going to sleep and not waking up. They found him with a smile on his face and a photograph in his hand one Eleanor had taken the previous Christmas of the entire extended family gathered on the porch. The funeral was attended by everyone in the valley and beyond. Tom might have been a ranch hand by trade, but he'd become something more, a grandfather figure to half the children in the area, a source of wisdom and humor, a reminder that family was about more than blood. Samuel stood beside the grave, tears streaming down his 5-year-old face, and placed Tom's carved wooden horse on the coffin. For the journey, he said solemnly, remembering one of Tom's stories about warriors being buried with their treasures. As they walked back to the house after the burial, Anna noticed how the ranch had changed. What had once been a lonely man's isolation had become a small community unto itself. Besides the main house, there were now 3 smaller homes for the married ranch hands, a proper schoolhouse where James taught not just the ranch children, but kids from neighboring farms, and even a small chapel that the circuit preacher used once a month. We've built a town, she said to Ethan wonderingly. We've built a life, he corrected. A good one despite everything. Or perhaps because of everything Anna thought. Every challenge had made them stronger, every threat had brought them closer together, every loss had taught them to value what remained. That evening, as had become tradition, the family gathered on the porch. Ethan played Tom's favorite tune on his fiddle while Anna sang. Samuel joined in with his sweet child's voice, and even Grace hummed along. Hope and James harmonized their children sleeping peacefully inside. Aunt Catherine, frailer now but still sharp, kept time with her knitting needles. The music drifted across the valley, carrying over the graves of those they'd lost, the fields they'd planted, the dreams they'd built. It was a song of mourning and celebration of endings and beginnings, of a cook who'd become a wife who'd become a mother who'd become the heart of a community that stretched far beyond blood or law. As the last notes faded, Samuel asked, "Mama, will you tell the story again? About how you came here?" Anna smiled, gathering her children close. Once upon a time, there was a lonely rancher who posted an advertisement for a cook. She told the story as she always did, but each telling added new layers: Tom's wisdom, Hope's courage, the town's loyalty, the way love multiplied when shared rather than hoarded. It was becoming legend. She realized the kind of story that would be told long after they were all gone, changed and embellished, but essentially true. And they lived happily ever after, Grace asked sleepily. They lived, Anna corrected gently, with happiness and sorrow, struggle and triumph, loss and love. They lived fully and well, surrounded by family and friends on a ranch that had become a beacon of hope in the wilderness. That's not a proper ending, Samuel protested. Because it's not an ending, Ethan said, lifting his son onto his lap. It's a middle. Our story goes on through you and Grace and Joy, through all the children who'll grow up here, through all the lives we've touched and who've touched ours. As if to emphasize his point, a rider appeared on the horizon, moving slowly toward the ranch. As the figure drew closer, they could see it was a young woman, travel-worn and clearly exhausted. "Please," she called out as she reached the gate. "I saw your advertisement in Denver about needing a cook I can cook, and I need a place to start over." Anna and Ethan exchanged glances, remembering another desperate woman who'd arrived with nothing but hope and determination. "Come in," Anna called back. "Welcome to the Double W. We'll discuss the position over supper." As they ushered the young woman inside, Anna caught Ethan's hand. "The wheel turns," she said softly. "And the story continues," he agreed. Behind them, the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple. The Double W Ranch stood solid against the vastness of Wyoming, no longer a lonely outpost but a thriving homestead, a testament to the power of second chances and the courage of those brave enough to answer an advertisement for a cook and find instead a family, a purpose, and a love that could weather any storm. The young woman's name was Margaret Foster, and her story, when it finally came out over cups of coffee and Anna's fresh bread, was heartbreakingly familiar. A broken engagement, accusations of theft she hadn't committed, and a family that had turned their backs rather than fight for her innocence. She was 22, educated, and desperate enough to answer an advertisement that had been posted months ago and forgotten. "We don't actually need a cook anymore," Ethan said gently, but Anna placed a hand on his arm. "We need a teacher's assistant," she said, thinking quickly. "James has more students than he can handle alone, and with Hope expecting again, she can't help as much. Can you read and write well, Margaret?" "Yes, ma'am. I was training to be a governess before—" Margaret's voice trailed off, shame coloring her cheeks. "Before life happened," Anna finished firmly. "We've all been there. You'll have room and board, fair wages, and more importantly, a chance to prove yourself to people who understand second chances." That night, as they prepared for bed, Ethan pulled Anna close. "You see yourself in every desperate woman who shows up here." "I see who I could have been if you hadn't taken a chance on me," Anna corrected. "How can I offer less to someone else?" "The ranch is becoming a refuge," Ethan said, but he was smiling. Tom would have loved this. Tom did love this. It's why he stayed all those years. The addition of Margaret to their extended household proved fortuitous. She was indeed excellent with children, patient and creative in ways that complemented James's more structured teaching style. Within a month, she had the younger children reading stories they'd thought beyond them, and the older ones writing compositions that would have impressed any Eastern schoolmaster. It was Samuel who first noticed something else about Margaret, the way she sang when she thought no one was listening. Her voice pure and trained in ways that spoke of formal education. "Miss Margaret sings pretty," he told his mother one evening. "Like you, Mama, but different." Anna investigated and discovered Margaret in the schoolhouse after hours teaching the children harmonies for a hymn. The sound was ethereal voices blending in ways that transformed the simple wooden structure into something approaching a cathedral. "You have training," Anna observed when the children had dispersed. Margaret blushed. "My mother was a music teacher before she married. She taught me everything she knew." "Then you should teach the children. Music education is just as important as letters and numbers." "But I couldn't impose—" "It's not an imposition, it's a gift, one that should be shared." As autumn arrived with its explosion of gold and amber across the valley, the ranch faced a new challenge. The success of their cattle operation and Anna's shrewd business dealings had attracted attention from a different kind of threat. Not outlaws this time, but businessmen from Chicago who wanted to buy them out. "3 times what the ranch is worth," Ethan said, reading the latest offer. "They want to turn the whole valley into one massive operation." "Corporate ranching," Anna said with disgust. "They drive out all the small farmers, destroy the community we've built." "We're not selling," Ethan said firmly, "but they're buying up land all around us. The Petersons sold last week, the Millers are considering it." "Then we need to give people a reason to stay," Anna said thoughtfully. "What if we created a cooperative pool, resources, share profits, make it impossible for outsiders to divide us?" The idea was radical for Wyoming, but Anna had learned from her father's business dealings that sometimes radical was necessary. She spent weeks drawing up plans, consulting with lawyers in Denver, and most importantly, talking to their neighbors. The meeting was held in the Double W's main house on a crisp October evening. Every rancher and farmer within 50 miles had come curious and skeptical in equal measure. "What you're proposing sounds like socialism," Harold Brennan said bluntly. He and Margaret had prospered over the years, their store becoming the center of town commerce, but he remained cautious about change. "It's not socialism," Anna replied calmly. "It's mutual protection. We maintain individual ownership but pool resources for purchasing, shipping, and defense against corporate encroachment. Together we're too strong to be bought out piecemeal. And if someone wants to leave," asked William Henderson, whose father had sold to the Chicago group, Then they sell to the cooperative first at fair market value. The land stays in local hands. It took 3 more meetings and considerable negotiation, but by November the Valley Cooperative was official. Anna was elected treasurer. No one else had her head for figures while Ethan became president, his reputation for fairness making him the only choice everyone could accept. The Chicago businessmen were furious. Their representative, a smooth-talking man named Cornelius Webb, arrived at the ranch with barely concealed threats. "You're making a mistake, Mrs. Ward. Progress is inevitable. You can either profit from it or be crushed by it." "We choose a third option," Anna said coolly. "We adapt and thrive on our own terms." "You can't fight capital forever." "Watch us," Ethan said, his presence beside Anna solid as the mountains. "This valley has fought off Indians, outlaws, weather, and disease. A few men in suits don't scare us." But Webb wasn't done. If he couldn't buy them out, he'd try to break them through other means. Strange things began happening. Cattle disappeared, fences were cut, and then came the fire. It started in the schoolhouse on a windy December night. Margaret had been working late preparing for the Christmas pageant and barely escaped with her life. By the time the fire was contained, the building was gone along with all the books, slates, and musical instruments they'd accumulated. It was deliberately set, Sheriff Morrison confirmed, showing them the remnants of oil-soaked rags. Someone wanted to hurt the community where it would feel it most. The loss hit the children hardest. Samuel stood staring at the smoldering ruins, tears streaming down his face. "All our books are gone. Tom's books that he gave us. Books can be replaced," Anna said, though her heart ached at the loss. "What matters is that Miss Margaret is safe." But Margaret wasn't safe, not emotionally. She blamed herself, convinced the fire was somehow her fault for staying late. She retreated into herself, stopped singing, and spoke of leaving. "You can't go?" Grace said with a 5-year-old's directness. "You're family now. Family doesn't leave." "Sometimes they do," Margaret said sadly. "Sometimes staying hurts more than going." It was Aunt Catherine who intervened, her age giving her wisdom the others lacked. She cornered Margaret in the kitchen one morning, her sharp eyes missing nothing. "You think running will make the guilt go away? She asked bluntly. "I've lived long enough to know that guilt follows you wherever you go. The only way to beat it is to face it and build something better from the ashes." "How?" "By staying, by rebuilding. By showing those bastards, pardon my language, that they can burn our buildings, but not our spirit." The community's response was swift and overwhelming. Within days, donations poured in from across the territory. Books arrived from Denver, a piano from Cheyenne, lumber from every ranch in the valley. By Christmas Eve, a new schoolhouse stood where the old one had burned bigger and better than before. The Christmas pageant held in the new building was a triumph. Margaret had written an original composition telling the story of the valley, its struggles, its triumphs, its unbreakable spirit. When the children's voices rose in harmony, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. "You did this," Anna told Margaret afterward. "You brought beauty from ashes." "We all did," Margaret corrected, but she was smiling for the first time since the fire. Winter passed quietly after that, as if the valley was catching its breath. The cooperative thrived, their combined negotiating power, getting better prices for cattle and supplies. The Chicago interests retreated, at least temporarily, and life settled into comfortable rhythms. It was spring when the next change came, this one joyful. Margaret had been corresponding with a man in California, the brother of a friend from her old life who'd believed in her innocence when no one else had. He'd written faithfully for months, and now he was coming to visit. David Chen was not what anyone expected. Half Chinese, half Irish, he was a doctor who'd faced his own share of prejudice and isolation. But he was also kind, intelligent, and completely devoted to Margaret from the moment he arrived. "She wrote about all of you," he said at dinner that first night. "About how you took her in, gave her purpose. I had to meet the people who saved her." "She saved herself," Anna said. "We just gave her the space to do it." The courtship was swift and sure. By summer, they were married in the chapel on the ranch with the children's choir Margaret had trained providing the music. It was a bittersweet moment. The community was losing a beloved teacher, but gaining proof that happiness could find you even in the most unexpected places. "All right," Margaret promised Anna as she prepared to leave for California, where David had his practice. "And I'll send books for the school." "Just be happy." Anna said, embracing her. That's all any of us can ask for. As one story ended, another began. Hope's latest child, a daughter named Catherine, after the aunt who delivered her was learning to walk. Samuel, now 8, had started helping with the cattle drives, showing a natural ability that made Ethan proud. Grace had inherited her mother's voice and her father's determination, while Joy at 2 was already showing signs of being the wildest of them all. "We need more help," Hope said one evening as she corralled her 4 children. "I love them all, but I'm outnumbered." "Then we hire more help," Anna said practically. "Post another advertisement." "For what?" "A childminder, a second teacher, another cook." Ethan laughed. "At this rate, we'll have to incorporate as a town." "Would that be so bad?" Anna asked seriously. "We have enough people now. The cooperative has brought stability. Why not make it official?" The idea seemed outlandish at first, but the more they discussed it, the more sense it made. The ranch had evolved far beyond its original boundaries. Between the various families, hired hands, and regular visitors, nearly 50 people called the Double W home or depended on it for their livelihood. The process of officially establishing the town of Ward's Crossing, as they decided to call it, took 2 years of legal wrangling surveys and negotiations. But by Samuel's 10th birthday, it was official. Ethan was elected the first mayor and Anna the treasurer and James the head of the school board. From a cook to a town founder, Ethan mused one evening as they watched the sun set over their domain. "Did you ever imagine?" "Never," Anna admitted. "I just wanted to be safe, to find a place where I could stop running. And now I want to build something that lasts, something our children and their children can be proud of." The town grew slowly but steadily. A proper general store replaced the small trading post. A bank was established with Anna as one of the primary investors, and most remarkably, a small hospital funded jointly by the cooperative and a surprising benefactor, David Chen, who sent money regularly with notes crediting Margaret's stories about the valley's needs. It was during the town's second official year that danger returned, this time in the form of disease. Scarlet fever swept through the valley, striking children with vicious randomness. The new hospital was overwhelmed and fear gripped every parent's heart. Joy was among the first to fall ill, her tiny body burning with fever. Anna didn't leave her side for 3 days, singing every song she knew, telling every story, bargaining with God for her daughter's life. "Please," she whispered in the darkest hour of the 3rd night. "She's only 4. She hasn't had a chance to live yet." Ethan sat on Joy's other side, his rough hands gentle as they bathed her fevered skin. "She's a fighter, like her mother. She'll pull through." And she did, though it was close. The fever broke at dawn, leaving Joy weak but alive. Others weren't so fortunate. 3 children in the valley died, including the youngest Henderson boy, and the grief hung over Ward's Crossing like a shroud. "We need a real doctor," Anna said at the emergency town meeting. "Someone trained who lives here permanently." "No doctor wants to come to Wyoming," but Harold Brennan pointed out. "Not to a small town like ours." "Then we make it worth their while," Anna said firmly. "We offer housing, guaranteed salary from the cooperative, and something most places can't, a community that takes care of its own." The search took months, but eventually they found Dr. Sarah Morrison, no relation to the sheriff despite the name. She was young, freshly graduated from medical school, and eager to prove herself in a place that wouldn't care that she was a woman doctor. "Why here?" Anna asked during the interview. "Because you advertised for a doctor, not a male doctor," Sarah replied. "That tells me everything I need to know about this town." Her arrival marked another turning point. With proper medical care available, more families were willing to settle in the area. The school expanded to 3 teachers. The bank grew to handle increasing business, and Ward's Crossing began appearing on official territorial maps. Samuel, now 13, had grown into a thoughtful young man who combined his mother's intelligence with his father's steady nature. He often accompanied Ethan on business trips to Denver and Cheyenne, learning the cattle trade and the art of negotiation. It was on one such trip that they encountered unexpected news. In a hotel lobby in Denver, they overheard 2 men discussing the Double W Ranch. "That's the place that started as just a cook advertisement," one said. "Now it's practically an empire. They say the woman who runs it came from nothing." "Not nothing," the other corrected. I heard she was Boston society fled some scandal. Either way, it's quite a story. From desperate woman to one of the most powerful people in Wyoming. Samuel looked at his father. Is that true about Mother? Every word, Ethan said proudly. And more besides. Your mother didn't just survive her past, she transformed it into something beautiful. When they returned home, Samuel sought out his mother, finding her in the garden she'd replanted so many times over the years. Tell me the real story, he said. Not the one you tell us children, but the true one. All of it. Anna studied her son, seeing the man he was becoming. It's not a pretty story. Life rarely is, but I need to know where I come from, who we really are. So she told him everything: Richard Thornton's cruelty, her desperate flight, the fear that had driven her west, the violence they'd faced, the losses they'd endured. She showed him the old newspapers about the trials, the letters from those dark days, the scars that remained. Samuel listened in silence, his young face grave. When she finished, he took her hands that had once been soft and white, now calloused and strong from years of work. You're the bravest person I know, he said simply, and I'm proud to be your son. That night at dinner, Anna watched her family, her 4 children. Ethan still strong and steady, Hope and James with their brood. Aunt Catherine now 90, but still sharp, the various extended family members who'd joined them over the years. The table that had once sat empty now required multiple additions to accommodate everyone. I want to make an announcement, Samuel said, suddenly standing. I've decided what I want to do with my life. Everyone turned to look at him expectantly. I want to study law. Not to leave here, but to protect what we've built, to make sure no one can ever threaten our town or our family again. Law school's expensive, Ethan pointed out, though his eyes showed approval. I'll work for it, save every penny from the cattle drives. And maybe, Samuel looked at his mother, the town could sponsor me as an investment in its future. The town would be lucky to have you as its lawyer, Anna said, pride swelling in her chest. As the evening progressed, with its usual chaos of children playing adults, talking music filling the air, Anna stepped outside for a moment of quiet. The ranch spread before her in the twilight, but it was so much more than a ranch now. It was a town, a community, a testament to the power of second chances and the courage to build something from nothing. She heard footsteps and wasn't surprised when Ethan joined her, as he had so many evenings over the years. Any regrets? He asked the same question he'd asked periodically throughout their marriage. How could I regret this? Anna gestured to the lights beginning to twinkle across Ward's Crossing, the sound of laughter from inside the sense of absolute rightness in this moment. We've come far from that day you answered my advertisement. Not far, Anna corrected. We've gone deep, deeper into life, into love, into purpose. A small hand tugged at her skirt. Joy, recovered but still delicate from her illness, looked up with eyes that held too much wisdom for her years. Mama Miss Sarah says I could learn to be a doctor like her someday. She says I have gentle hands and a quick mind. Do you want to be a doctor? I want to help people like you and Papa do, but with medicine. Anna lifted her daughter, looking into the face that combined the best of herself and Ethan. Then you'll be a doctor, the first one born in Ward's Crossing. As they went back inside, Anna paused at the threshold, looking at the worn wood, where thousands of footsteps had passed desperate women seeking shelter, cowboys looking for home families, building futures. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, she knew. The Chicago interests hadn't given up entirely. There were rumors of statehood for Wyoming that would change everything, and her children were growing up faster than her heart could accept. But tonight, there was music. Ethan had taken up his fiddle, playing the same tune that had first drawn them together. Anna began to sing her voice, joined by her children, by Hope and James, even by Aunt Catherine's thin but determined warble. The song spread through the house, out into the yard where the ranch hands joined in, across to the other houses where families added their voices to the chorus. It was a song of journey and arrival, of loss and discovery, of a lonely rancher who'd wanted just a cook and a desperate woman who'd needed just a chance. But most of all, it was a song of transformation, how love could turn a ranch into a refuge into a community into a legacy that would outlive them all. Margaret Foster's latest letter from California lay on the kitchen table, full of news about her growing family and the medical practice she helped David manage. She'd enclosed a photograph of their 3 children and a check to help fund the new library Ward's Crossing was building. "We name it the Tom Campbell Memorial Library," Anna had declared at the last town meeting, using Tom's full name for the first time publicly. "So every child who reads there will know that wisdom comes from unexpected places." As the evening deepened and children began to drowse, Anna found herself back at the window looking out at the darkness that no longer frightened her. Somewhere out there perhaps was another desperate woman running from something, looking for safety. And maybe she'd see an advertisement not for a cook anymore, but for a teacher, a nurse, a shopkeeper, any of the dozen positions Ward's Crossing regularly needed to fill. And maybe she'd come as Anna had come, with nothing but hope and determination. And maybe she'd find, as Anna had found, that sometimes when you're running away from something, you're really running toward the life you were meant to live. "What are you thinking?" Ethan asked, joining her one more time. "That every ending is really a beginning," Anna said. Tom's death began a legacy of education. Margaret's leaving brought Dr. Sarah. Even the fire that destroyed the schoolhouse led to building something better. "And your arrival," Ethan pulled her close. "What did that begin?" "Everything," Anna said simply. "It began everything." From upstairs, Grace's voice called out, telling a story to her younger sisters, the familiar tale of a rancher and a cook, but already she was adding her own embellishments, making it more dramatic, more romantic, more legendary than the messy, painful, beautiful reality had been. And that was as it should be, Anna thought. Each generation would tell the story differently, shape it to their needs, find in it the inspiration they required. But at its heart would remain the truth that had brought her to that stagecoach platform years ago. That courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. That family was built on choice as much as blood, and that sometimes the greatest adventures began with the simplest words, "Help wanted." As she and Ethan climbed the stairs to bed, passing the rooms full of sleeping children, the photographs of those they'd lost, the evidence of lives fully lived, Anna felt a deep peace settle over her. Tomorrow, Samuel would leave for Denver to begin preparing for law school. Grace would start teaching the youngest children their letters. Joy would follow Dr. Sarah on her rounds, learning the basics of medicine. And baby Catherine Hope's youngest would take her first unassisted steps. The wheel would continue to turn. The story would continue to unfold, and the Double W Ranch. Now the heart of Ward's Crossing would continue to be what it had become, a beacon of hope. In the wilderness, proof that sometimes the most extraordinary lives began with the most ordinary moments, and that love, when given room to grow, could transform not just 2 people, but an entire community. The last sound Anna heard before sleep claimed her was Ethan's voice humming the melody that had become theirs, and the wind through the windows that no longer howled with threat, but sang with promise of dawn, of spring, of all the tomorrows yet to come.